then they fought back even harder. It more looked like slip-ups from them than anything else. They've had victories across different maps. They've showed that they have a home map of Ascent, which is something that I don't think we really expected this early on in Valorant. Like, you look at every other team, it's back and forth. Like, the choices of Fish were normally Haven. They've lost it twice in a row now and had to win on other maps, which were the home maps of other teams. So I think that they're definitely going into this. You have to favor G2. I think it'd be ludicrous not to. But at the same time, you then look over at the other side. You've highlighted Ardis as an individual. We highlighted players like Soulcast before. He had one of his worst maps ever in this tournament, and then went on later in that overtime game to have his highest kill stat ever. At least in the maps recorded, of course. It's hard to go through every single match people have played. But he dropped, I think that was his first 30 bomb within a competitive match, and helps win them the game. So David P, another one, someone we harped on at the beginning of the tournament, then went and dropped his highest kill game ever, 29 kills in a match on Ascent. So we go into this with some of the players having their poor matches, but then having some of the best games we've ever seen from them coming into the playoffs, which makes this match so much more exciting.
Now, Mitch, when you're looking at these teams, right, where would you say is the weak links for each team? Because for me, I gave G2, they've got the aggression, they've got the firepower, but they've also had these players that we thought were some of their weak links, have great individual performances, and I'm struggling to see the negatives really for them. And when it comes to Fish, okay, they have these moments where they come out absolutely all guns blazing, but I think for them, it's really the confidence that I look at could be the major issue.
Yeah, so when I look at these teams, right, you're asking about the negatives. You have to really look closely to find them, first of all. It's not like we're coming and going, well, this is a clear problem, like whatever. Pith for G2 is probably the one that I have been the most unimpressed by when it came in game to game. I think he's had the most underwhelming performances. I think he tilts a little bit and goes in for aggressive plays he doesn't need to go for. Those have been the downsides of his play. Now, by and large, he does his role and gets on with it, but when things aren't going his way, I don't think he currently has the mental state to keep himself focused on the goal and not go away from the game strategy, right? The other side for Fish, I think they've shown a couple of times on their attacking side that they had this massive problem with taking map control. I know it's something that in Valorant sometimes might feel like you don't need to do, and that's very much dependent on your opponents. Depending on the agents they play and where they play them, you can go in for more pointed and quick strategies. But we saw that when a Sage or a Cypher slowed them down, they were constantly left. The game versus Nip on Ascent is the one that really shone this through for me, that they wouldn't have anybody watching anywhere else on the map. And when they got locked out by an ice wall and by some tripwires, all of a sudden they started to go back for control, and they'd find someone waiting right behind for them, like a Rhyme sat in the corner and spawn, or they will have let a Sova push up into the corner on A. And they just got demolished. They lost, I think, 3 or 4 rounds on their attacking side purely because of one flank, because they didn't spread for map control. But that's something they've fixed already, and it's hard to really point out any flaws in their game plan from yesterday.
Oh, that's a scary thing to deal with, right? When you're struggling to point out flaws in these teams when it comes down to it. Now, Tom, when we're looking at both teams on the level here, we know where the positives are, we know where the negatives are, like Mitch just explained for us. But is there a way, even in the veto, that we can see a win here? Because the scary thing for me is where G2 looks super strong when it comes into this veto. They're even picking into Ascent that we saw Fish pick earlier on in the tournament, and it wasn't working out too well for them. We know where Fish love to go in taking Haven so many times, but that hasn't looked great for them.
Yeah, I think that's the issue. Like, both teams seem to be their best statistics come out on Ascent, excluding if you go that technically Fish have 100% win rate on Bind because they played it once and they won it once. I'm not going to count that. Yeah. But then you go to Haven, 50-50, and even they lost to Party Parrots, who definitely haven't looked their best, I would say, in this tournament. Still look good, but not to the heights we saw. And I think a lot of it with Fish seems to come down to the start. Like, if they start slow, then I think it worries me more so. Like, we've seen them not come back into games, whereas for G2, they can only get 3 rounds in the first half and still manage to streak it together.
Yeah.
The thing that actually scares me more for G2 is sometimes the communication aspect. And that's mainly because even David P said it yesterday when we interviewed him. I said, okay, so you don't really have a technical in-game leader. You just have a lot of different people calling stuff on a whim and what they think is the right thing to do. Are you actually going to move towards a dedicated in-game leader? And he said, I don't know. We're a mixed team. And that in itself is enough for me to go, well, then that's a weakness. That in itself is a weakness. Yeah. You're playing a top-tier tournament like a mixed team, and I can tell you right now, Fish are not playing this like a mixed team. They've switched up agents. They've changed things around so people aren't necessarily in their own comfort zone for the betterment of the team. And that is something that very much excites me about this roster going forward. So G2 almost have to basically, I want to say, shake Fish, so that then they're in those awkward early starts, because otherwise I feel like they might have the trouble of, okay, if Ardis is trying to make plays, well, who's going to be the best players to counter Ardis? His teammates. Who's going to be the best players to maybe counter someone like Mixo, who has had those off games? Well, probably the team that was previously the best in the world.
Well, let's take a look at this map, Vito, and see exactly how it's going to go down. I've got a sneaky feeling that most likely GT will pick Ascent. It's the Fish one that's really going to get me on which way do they want to go with this. Mitch, would you want to hazard a guess at this one?
Yeah, see, outside of Ascent, it's really difficult to see where Fish go. I definitely agree with that. I'm guessing it will depend on what they've seen from the G2 games. And yeah, they go with a bind. Look, that was a really close game they had versus NIP, right? 8 rounds in the defensive side. They came back and won 5 out of 6 on attack and to close the game out. I feel like we're, or to bring it into overtime, rather. I feel like overall, it's a decent map, but I don't know if they'll be able to match up against G2. They just play such a loose, aggressive style. And on individual skill, we've seen players like Scream lack. Look, he's one of the highest rated players in the tournament. He's one of 2 people, Solkus being the other, to drop a 30 bomb in a game. But he has had some rough games. Even just yesterday versus NIP, the second half over on, I think it was Ascent, where he just didn't exist. He ended up bottom fragging after dominating the first. That could be a real problem versus the loose G2 on bind.
I want to see Pat. Like, Pat on this map yesterday was unreal. Like, I don't know if he'd play with the same level of confidence again. Obviously, on bind yesterday, I think that was the match where he actually got the highest rating we've had in the whole tournament.
Yeah.
So that he was basically just pushing mid, fighting everybody, winning individual duels, and that's what I talk about when I say disrupting Fish. Like playing in a way that you can't play against. It's impossible because he was just playing out of his mind. The thing that makes things interesting for me is that was the one map where I think Fish actually looked really good versus NIP. The others were much closer. In fact, the one that they lost, I think that one was a 13-5 victory, and then on the other side, that was the one that NIP actually managed to take off of G2. So I can understand why they've gone for this. We had the interview with Eccles as well, and he said this was one that we felt confident on, but not confident enough to pick. Well, clearly the win over NIP has given them that confidence to pick it. So it definitely is one that they could take. It's just, I don't know if G2 have that same level as they did against Nemo DM, if they can compete with that level of firepower.
And do you think that's a real chance there, Mitch, that we can see like the confidence from G2 just come out straight away? Doesn't matter what map we go on to. It's just like if they can have all players feeling that confident even against the Fish?
You definitely could, but the other side of the coin, right, is that Fish, as I said, have adopted to a much more passive. I think very much because of what they came up against on NIP. I remember hearing them say multiple times, this team's just so damn passive. They're so patient on their attacking side. Now, if G2 come through with just full-on confidence, that could be a real problem if they're getting aggressive on the defensive side and running straight into a Scream that's waiting around a corner, or a Link with how he's been playing. That man's been a pretty consistent beast. He's had a couple where he's been top fragging, but mostly in that top half of the scoreboard. And over on a Sage, I guess that's really what you expect. So, look, I think it's probable that G2 come in with confidence. They'll want to start just beating their opponents into submission regardless of who they are. But within the first couple of rounds, it's really going to set the tone for the map as to whether Fish are going to allow that to fly.
And one thing, right, when we talk about the start of a game, we've had a few. It didn't happen in the playoffs, but it happened in the group stage for Mixwell from G2. Completely was non-existent in some games, and they were the games that G2 struggled most in. Ardis was still able to do his thing, but when he doesn't have that backup of a player like Mixwell really chiming in with the operator in hand, it seems to be a big issue for G2.
Yeah, well, that's the main reason I think Ardis is the fourth best player in the tournament. Obviously, with the amount of rounds he's played, he's not going to be number one. I think Scream is fifth, and I think Mixwell's a little bit further down the tally. The thing that terrifies me is the one thing with Mixwell that we can almost always rely on is first bloods. Like, he's so good at getting those opening picks. In fact, yesterday, which is a kind of a terrifying stat, you remember how aggressive G2 were being.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And a lot of the time you were seeing multi-frags and all these crazy rounds. They also got 67% of all opening kills, which is, like, normally when you're on the defense side and you're getting aggressive, I would expect that stat to go the other way because you might be trying to trade kills or just take map control. If you're on the offense, I would at least give you a little bit more of an edge in that regard because that's what you need. But they were just smashing Nemo DM. Now, I want to go out there and say right now, I think Fish are going to do a better job than Nemo DM. So, I honestly think that the Hungarians had a bad game yesterday. I think they got caught off with how aggressive G2 are and they couldn't recover fast enough other than a few magic moments from BZT. On the other side of things, though, yesterday was the one day we saw Fish have pretty much every single one of their players perform. And that's what it took to beat NIP. Like, bear in mind, it went to multiple overtimes, and it was a 17-15 victory for them to take themselves through. And that was with everybody playing well. So that means if even a couple of players are missing here today, they're in real trouble. And the thing that G2 have proven is they can win without Mixwell. They can even win without Ardis. And there was a game where I think Mixwell and Ardis had 12 and 13 kills, and the rest of the players dragged them through.
And that's a real big problem if you're Fish, because one thing when it comes to Fish, right, they need Scream to be on form. They need Eccles to be doing really well, that operator in hand. And they don't have the luxury where some of the other players can step up. We did see a great performance out of Soulcast, but I mean, that's not something I can really rely on here, Mitch.
Yeah, no, look, we've seen pretty much every player on Fish step it up, but never really to a consistent, to a consistency where we'll be able to turn around and say they'll be able to do it if these players aren't showing up. The one thing actually I would kind of speak out in favor of Fish for is that with Bind, this is a very different team than what G2 have played against in the past. And they've even looking at Fish's games, they'll be used to playing and scrimming perhaps against this team, but not when you've got 3 players on 3 completely different agents to what they normally play. We see Scream go off the Breach and go over to Sage. Link takes the Sova instead of Sage, obviously, because Scream's playing it. And then Soulcast goes to Raze. So you have a team that are playing completely different agents than they normally do. And therefore, the consistencies that maybe they will have picked up on when I presume these guys are scrimming against each other a little bit could be completely different here.
Now, do we think, though, when it comes to agent picks, right, that they might allow a little bit more of a flex come in from the Fish side? Because they've been very structured in how they've done it, right? We've seen them move away from what we said was a bit more of the random choices coming out there. You spoke about what Sliggy said in order that they are focusing on what they believe is just the best agents. But do they need to kind of surprise G2 in some way?
I actually think that would be the last thing they want to do. Because I think the one thing that Fish really have in their favor is the fact that they're a structured, like almost well-drilled team in comparison to G2. Like, there's definitely still things that Fish need to work on. They've said it themselves. They don't necessarily feel perfectly comfortable just yet. But G2 a lot of the time are almost just flexing on opponents. Like, you're using your individual skill. You have that brilliance behind you. You have players like Ardis who can win you around. And in fact, on Bind, one of the main things they were doing is they were getting very aggressive. Like, if you watch how they play B Long, it'll be Ardis with the support of David P looking for opening picks. Now, if a team doesn't give them those opening picks, or even worse, like challenges them back, which granted that this is a Fish choice, I imagine the defense start will be there for G2, which is their favored side most of the time. But if they're shutting down those pushes, I want to know if G2 have another layer to that game, because they did lose to NIP, which are a team that I feel like are very good at winning a lot of those opening fights. So if they can shut them down there, they have a good chance. And the team that they smashed, well, I think man for man, pound for pound, Need More DM don't match up.
Well, we've got our commentators for this grand final just about to join us. We got Bok and Simo. And boys, you guys have been listening to everything we've been saying here. This is the grand final we wanted, right? This matchup for Fish to take on G2. But again, it just seems like we're so positive towards this G2 lineup. Have you guys got a bit more hope in Fish, or are you G2 all the way as well?
Who's going to talk first? It's a standoff.
There we go.
I was like, who's going to take that one first? Honestly,
I got this.
Listen, you got it? Okay, good. You go for it.
Okay. Man, we're just going so Canadian over here, passing it back and forth. Listen, G2, I have a feeling they have, not I have a feeling, but they have a lot of stars on their lineup, a lot of first bloods that come through on varying members, Mixwell, Ardis, Patitek. They all can have the opportunity to get first bloods. But on the side of fish123, it's really only Scream that has the highest first blood per round in the outside of his entire team. And so while he's the IGL, he's calling the shots, the fact that he also has to pull the weight in getting some of those entry picks and pushing forward with his team, he's really going to need fish123, the whole team, to step up if they want to deal with the craziness that G2, I think, bring to the table. Regardless of the map, regardless of the quote-unquote win rate per map, G2, they just play so wild, so crazy, and everyone can frag out. Yes, we talked about the weak link in Pith, but I just think there's too much firepower on G2.
Yeah,
well,
I think ultimately, like what you're saying is the sum of the parts
boys.
is
I'm sorry
higher.
to cut you off, Bog, but it's time for us to get out of here, mate. We're going to keep this rolling.
Jeez, man, I'm not allowed to say anything. I'm leaving. You got this. See you later.
Oh, he actually got up. Okay. All right. I guess it's the CMO solo cast. I'm not sure the analyst desk is going to like that very much. Okay, Bach, thank you. Thank you for coming back. But
Yeah, sorry, I'll balance things out.
It's, I had to look at the first bloods per round just to kind of see, specifically for the tournament, in the actual environment that we have, not for their first bloods outside of the tournament. Back at the top, we know how great of a player he is, 0.23 first bloods per round. It's pretty much a huge portion of the G2 members that are around 0.17, 0.14. And the next best player is for fish123, 0.13. So I'm worried that G2 are going to find way too many entry picks. And that's going to be bad news for fish123. When you're down in a 3v5 or a 2v4, when G2 have the man advantage, things start to get scary, especially if Scream gets picked off first. So gonna have to see fish123 pull up their pants, find some second win here. They had a great showing yesterday. It was a little sloppy against NIP, but hopefully they were able to get fixed up around the edges there.
I think you did definitely kind of illustrate exactly the problem that NIP or that fish123 is going to have coming into this one. Yesterday against NIP, sure, they picked up the win, but at times they struggled. And as a collective group regarding firepower, I would say that G2 is definitely a whole lot stronger than that NIP roster. So yeah. I definitely am a little bit concerned here for fish123. G2 largely touted as the best team in Europe currently. Obviously, we haven't seen a whole lot of G2 and a whole lot of these European events, so it's a little early and maybe a bit premature to be making that claim. But they've illustrated that case in the instances that we've gotten to see them play. And obviously, just looking at the team, even though I've constantly said that a team is more than just the sum of its parts, even just looking at it at that face value, you have to see the strength that G2 brings to the table. So I definitely think this is going to be a very difficult series for fish123. I think G2 is going to come out swinging. I think one of the biggest question marks on the side of fish123 is whether or not Eccles can match up against Mixwell with that operator. And then if they go with the double op look, putting it in Artis's hands as well, because they are definitely capable of doing that. Who's the secondary op, and are they even capable of matching that performance as well? This is definitely a bit problematic right now for fish123, and they're just going to have to come out swinging. Now, we do have a technical issue right off the bat. David P. currently MIA, so he'll be jumping back into the server momentarily. The only member of the G2 roster competing in this event, not technically signed with G2, but we mentioned it yesterday. I think it's time to slide that piece of paper across the desk and have him put his initials on it, because this man's been putting up performance after performance for G2 that's been definitely fun to watch.
Yeah. Just look out for that Simpsons gif of the stamp being assigned.
You were talking about wanting to have a bot that could search Twitter for that, just so you could get the intel.
Yeah, of course. I mean, think about all the players that are going to start spamming those gifs, or at least those emojis. We are seeing all the players start to disconnect, and I'm wondering why that might be the case, or at least in the chat it did say that a lot of players were disconnecting. Maybe they want to remake the lobby, get a better server, because I know that can sometimes be an issue. If you're playing on above 50 or above 100 ping, you definitely want to put yourself in a scenario where you can succeed, right? So you want to play on some good servers. Talking a little bit about the agent selection, I think we saw this on Bind the last time fish123 was here. Scream on the Sage. He calls the shots from the breach position. He flashes his team in onto sites. He flashes his team into corners. And on a map like this, you'd want to see breach, push through hookah or push through showers, whatever the case may be. But he's on the Sage here. And so what that means to me, or what that tells me, is that we're going to see the same Scream that we've seen before on the Sage. Now, something that we noticed yesterday in Mitch kind of keeping a close eye on Scream's stream and listening to the communications is that sometimes Scream has an itching to play Reyna, considering, I could have gotten out of that scenario, or I could have flashed myself out of that scenario. So, I mean, I have a feeling that it'll still work out in this scenario, but it's interesting to see him on a different agent.
I do like the Solkis play as well on Raze. He played really well yesterday on Bind against NIP. Went 17 and 11 with 7 assists, 282 combat score, the highest across the server. You would hope that that's the case with the Raze player, that you should be doing significant damage per round. The same could be said for the opposite side. Hip was the top for his team, but only a little bit ahead of Firoth, who was the Sova. But the big disappointment with the way the role swap went out was that Scream was playing the Sage, therefore Link had to play Sova, and Link did not play Sova very well in that game. 6, 8, and 7. Sure, you could say, oh, the number's not that big of a deal, whatever, the rest of the team carried the weight, but only 93 average combat scores. So Link was probably had one of the worst games he's had in this event thus far, playing as the Sova, so you definitely have to be concerned. Like, yeah, cool. It's great seeing Scream play that Sage role again, because Scream is definitely good as the Sage, but you have to also factor in what it's doing to everyone else. Like, what does that role, what does that agent composition change do to the other players on the outside of that? So it definitely affected Link. Sulcus, though, I mean, that swap from what he would typically play over to the Raze, that seemed to improve his performance, and I'd hope to see him play Raze more often.
And they talked a little bit about it on the desk, how for the side of G2, you'll often see them play pretty much the most consistent pool of agents that we've seen. Mixwell, of course, has that Viper in his back pocket, but likely just waiting for more buffs to come through before he really starts to pull it out on maps like Bind, maybe even on a map like Ascent for some one-ways that are probably possible in the different choke points that the defense can hold. But fish123 don't operate that way. They play the agents towards the map and whatever they feel comfortable with. And we've seen the Sova not really work out on both sides. You know, Link and Sulcus not having a great time on the Sova. But the fact that they put it in their agent selection means that it's something that's important to them. We've seen artists on the opposite side have some great games, have some bad games. But you have to ask yourself the question in some of these instances, is it the agent that is needed, or is it just, you know, the player that can just frag out and really not using some of that agent to the best of the ability? And for the side of fish123, based on the rotations, they are just trying to get the best bang for your buck on the map that they're on.
Now, guys, we want to jump into the game just as much as you want us to jump into the game. We're not like sitting on a button that magically starts the game as much as we like to joke about that. Unfortunately, there is a technical delay with one of the players, so our hands are tied. Hence, we wait. Hopefully, it'll be fixed momentarily and we'll be able to get back into things, as we were just about ready to kick off the series here. And then all of a sudden, Calamity strikes and takes that opportunity away from us. You know, for fish123, I don't think many people necessarily anticipated them making it this far. I think a lot of people had them as a semifinal favorite. Obviously, people wanted to see them get to that point. Same with Party Parrots, who didn't even get that far. But I think a lot of people anticipated G2 versus NIP in the finals. But they put up an impressive performance despite dropping their map selection early in that series, which was Haven to NIP, a map that they had already played them on and dominated them on earlier in the tournament. And then they came out and they looked really good on Bind. The question is whether or not they can do that again against a team that is, on paper, a much stronger roster. We saw some really promising things from some of the guys from NIP. But in general, looking at some of those players, they say, oh, you know, they don't perform as consistently as some of the members of G2. Lucker as the Sage, rocking the op. I don't think that he is as strong as Mixwell, and we've seen a little bit more consistent performance from Mixwell with the op. And I think in general, the surrounding pieces maybe just not quite as good as the surrounding pieces for G2. So this will be a much harder opponent to be facing off against. I hope they can continue to do what they did yesterday on Blind. I would love to see this go 3 maps, but I'm starting to think that this is probably going to be a 2-0. We'll see as things get ready to get started. Finally, the delay is done. Everything's fixed, and the match is live.
Wow, I like that aggression from David B. He pushes forward, a couple of dink shots, and then confidently grabs the orb. That'll give him another point towards the resurrection. And already the swing from Petidek. He'll take out his alter ego Eccles. They're trying to get this spike down on the A site, but so far it's G2 that are able to push them back, and it's just down to one final player here, Sulcus on the Raze. He's got the spike in hand, but unfortunately all his friends are dead. He's the last one standing, and he's heading over towards that B site.
Sulcus may have had a great game yesterday on Bind against NIP, but a 1-on-5, pretty difficult scenario. He does have Spike, and he's over towards B. Everyone else over on this A site, there's a Cypher Cam watching for the lurk in case he comes through spawn, but they hear the nade go off. He does not feel safe, so he hasn't yet dedicated to the Spike plant. but he will be able to get it free and clear inside the tuna can as the boombot goes out. Nope, here's the footsteps, takes the first fight, wins it, and then rededicates himself to that spike plant. The pulse is coming out from the recon dart, not giving away his position, but there's targets everywhere. There's the jump peak coming through. So at least they do end up getting a spike plant and 1 kill, because up until that moment, it was a disastrous round for fish123.
Yeah, that's the difference between 1,900 credits and 2,200 credits. So at the bare minimum, overall, the attack will get something for their troubles. And as we are now seeing, they're flirting around with the idea of a force-up 2 Spectres on the side of Lincoln Cryptics. We'll see if they commit to it as a whole. Armor coming in as well. That's as well. Eccles coming through with the Spectre. So they're looking to try to take this to the bank against G2. But Bach, we've seen that before. Win or lose, it feels like fish123 forced the issue on these second round buys. We'll see if G2 is expecting this, if they read this with VOD review. And as the preparation starts off for fish123, it's looking like a split towards the B and the A site.
Aldrone moving in mid, spots out the Sage initially. Fish123 doesn't look to be bringing a whole lot into the round. You can see the rifles already equipped here for a few. The T-Tech's gone to the Bulldog, but there's SMGs on a couple as well. Standard second round loadout coming in from G2. Right now the spike's back on short. And fish123 is mostly grouped up there. They're using the Aldrone to lead the charge into Hookah, but there's no one in Hookah right now. They're playing back a little bit further, and it looks like they're just making noise there to try and bait them into a rotate. But G2's been playing a 3-player hold over on B, and with this long push coming out from Artis and the Sage, they're getting a lot of information. There's that first peek coming in from Petit Tech that will also give away a little bit more intel. They'll start to rotate over. What they don't realize is there's going to be a pinch. Great paranoia coming in from Petit Tech to slow things down. Counter paranoia coming out, but it doesn't quite connect. Petit Tech has to back off as the nades are coming through. Yikes, that's tough to get away from Solkis peaks as the nade detonates, and it will be site control here for fish123.
Yep, we'll see a couple of those shots start to ring from Mixwell, but it's Artis from behind stealing that frag onto Eccles. It's still 4 strong here for fish123. They got to start that retake. Pith alongside Scream are trying to divide and conquer as they push in through lamps. The slow orb will make it difficult for Solkis to get out of here. They're just trying to get a little bit more athletic. Pith, a great slow swing through the orb, and they will just decimate one at a time, player after player, in fish123's force up. Not really going their way, as they'll get that spike diffused. Mixwell getting another point for his Blade Storm, and that's a 2-0 start here for G2.
It was weird too, because I think there was 1 or 2 players that were still on pistols, so they didn't like fully commit. Would have loved to see them maybe slow themselves down just a bit. They're going to be forced to obviously go down to pistols and a little bit of armor here as well. Whoever's going to be carrying that off, Eccles likely to be saving as much as he can, but you can see Lincoln Cryptics feeling comfortable with Sheriff Light Armor. Solkis is going to match that as well. Scream, for a second, thought, hey guys, I'll get the Guardian. But then he looks at his cash afterwards, realizes it's not going to be the right play.
Yeah.
So G2 is going to get off to that potential 3-0, assuming they don't fall to the pistols that are moving up in mid currently. David P's right around the corner with the Phantom, kindly holding this crack shot, just peeking, and once he gets that intel, he's just going to fall off, maybe wall that off. Decides to actually jump out and reposition towards long. They do have 2 players over here currently on the B site, with 1 starting to rotate over, so they don't have that standard 3-player B defense that we've seen from other teams when it comes to bind.
Well, we did see Artis pull over. He has kind of joined his team, thinking it might be the B push. So far, the correct read, but fish123 are just kind of hovering around, moving on to the actual round at hand. You know, talking about some of these sheriffs, it's really only NIP that we've seen make those sheriffs work. Yesterday, they were winning rounds that theoretically they should not have been. As David P opens up the frag onto Cryptics, the dry peak not really going to work out for fish123, and it's just down to the 4v5. You know, I really want someone to put together the statistics. I might even have a look at this myself. How many rounds have fish123 won on the second round force up after they lose the pistol? Because if it hasn't been working, if that win rate is below 50%, then why not just like suck up the pistol and go on rifles for that 3rd round and have a better chance? Because now they're just bleeding 3 pretty much for free. But we'll see if they're able to get any of these sneaky little picks. David P from behind. A great lurk through Hookah. He'll just spray them all. Link will find one onto Pith, but it's just down to the last and final player in Hookah. It's Eccles, and he'll be taken out.
So the round doesn't really work out well there for fish123. It's, I mean, basically what one would anticipate given what they brought in. This is that big round, though. They're coming in with a lot of the rifles. They're not going to have the AWP, so they're not going to be able to match against Mixwell in the one-on-one AWP duel. We did mention it coming into the series. It was going to be a battle between Eccles and Mixwell with the operator. And the question was whether or not Eccles can actually win that one-on-one exchange. Should the ops collide, who comes out on top? And in my mind, it feels like it's Mixwell, especially with him playing the Jet. Feels like he has an agent that is just more equipped for that type of play. Mixwell gets across, yeah, and the wall comes through and he has to dash back after being spotted out early. So changes positions, no shots coming out early from Mixwell despite the aggression.
fish123 looking towards the A site now, and that Stampede tells us they are looking to execute relatively soon. It's a lot of utility used back a site and towards A short from both sides of the attack and the defense. But it's Sulcus that wants to get a little bit more involved. That's the showstopper. It'll find its mark onto Artis. And now 4 remain for G2. The defense have arrived. The wall is up. The spike is down. And now it is up to G2 to get that retake underway.
Oh, you've got one holding the showers. Omen gonna take out Link. You've still got the Jet Mixwell on site. David P taking out one through the cyber cage. Gonna find another as well as he walks into the ice, slowly inching towards the U-Haul, where you've currently got the Sage going through and a great paranoia coming out to blind him. It's all up to Eccles in the one-on-many. Managed to take it down to 2, but gets dropped by David P in the end, who has another strong round here for G2, something that we've seen from him time and time again. In that clutch position, picking up multi-kill rounds, David P stepping up and matching the performance of all the official members of G2. G2, I saw you in chat. It's time.
You know what I find interesting? Yeah. You know what I find interesting? This is, of course, fish123's map pick. What are the odds that there's a 50% chance that the decider ends up being Haven, a map that fish123 like to go on and have been picking as their comfort pick, as their home map, as Tom likes to say, instead of Split? So I find that quite hilarious that fish123 kind of gets sent to the lifeline if it ends up going to that third map. So far, if we were to base it off of the first 4 rounds, not looking like it'll be the case. G2 has had such a strong start here. Of course, we've only had, 1 gun round, 2 gun rounds. Hasn't really had a lot of space for fish123 to show us what they're capable of, and the fact that we're on another pistol looks like it's going to be another round for G2.
Oh my gosh, the Sage Wall. It's a gamble, and the peak does not work out well. We were just singing praises of David P, but the aggression results in his immediate death. The ult coming out, though, the Hunter's Fury. He leaps up into the sky. The Pulse is going to connect, actually hitting multiple targets. They try to push up quicker as Pith had a dart in his belly giving away his position, and they will end up hitting that shot, but it's down to 2. It'll be the Omen and the Sova trying to work their way through on B long. Artis in sight inside the tuna can, using the dark cover as a bit of cover, and yeah, Eccles goes for the port inside that smoke, and Artis is just there waiting for him with the spike in his possession. The last remaining player is very low on HP over towards Octagon. Mixwell wants it very badly, but can't quite get it in time as Petit Tech is there with the Omen to take things now to a 5-0 scoreline. G2 looking really good off the start. This is kind of what we anticipated. Even though fish123 played really well yesterday on Bind against NIP, it just feels like G2 is a completely different caliber of opponent.
Yeah, we are looking at a gun round for fish123. So if there is a round they win, it's got to be this one. You can't let G2 have a 6-0 start on the defensive side of Bind. Bind, of course, for those of you that may be new to Valorant or watching this esport, this game for the first time, Bind is probably the closest map when it comes to being attacker or defender sided. As we see an engagement from Petit Tech, that'll be a quick res onto Link as the trade there is good. But still, it's the 4v5 and G2. They just lost a member with an aggressive push.
Pith smoked out in heaven. Link's gonna use that Owl drone to get intel on the site. Cryptics with a quick pick off onto Mixwell, and now they've got some site control. Artis is still here. He's over in U-Haul using shock darts to try and slow things down. Pith behind the smoke ends up putting a camera out. Well, at least get some intel, but the camera taken down almost immediately by Eccles. Eccles has to change positions, and the spray through the wall almost takes him out. He's very low on HP. Artis is still here in U-Haul, still being a problem. David P goes wide with the peak. Cryptics gets another on the round. Pith will chime in finally with the Phantom from Heaven, sending the rays flying to the netherworld, but it's Artis who has to come up big. He's very low on HP, just 27 remaining, and he's got a 1-on-3. One target is low, but the Sage goes with the wall to his right. All they have to do now is time the peaks out from Shower, and this round is all but unwinnable, so Artis decides to bail out. Going to save that weapon and bring it into the next round. Fish123 finally get themselves on the board.
This is a round that they needed to win, to be quite honest. You know, moving on round by round, starting to really bleed them out to G2. They'll put one on the board. To be quite honest, on the side of G2, I don't think they can really sweat too much. Yeah, that's fine. We'll give them a round. But they need to start being a little bit more cautious about their economy. They just lost pretty much all of their weaponry. Artis, of course, the only one surviving with the Phantom. They will be able to buy up, but that economy is not looking great across the board. Yes, Patisek and Artis, they're fine. They'll be okay. But it's the rest of the team that I'm starting to worry about. That was just 1,900 credits that came your way. You're guaranteed at least 2,400, but that's not going to be enough for everyone to buy in the following round. So pretty important that they continue their hold and continue not letting Fish123 into these sites. But that was a great push in that previous round.
Can they do it again? Can they find a couple of rounds in a row? Artis has to be careful as there's a couple of targets around the corner, but they don't push through. The Owl drone will spot out the first one inside the dark cover. So that'll keep them back just a bit. The Raze was there to help with the backup. Artis is going to have to fall out of hookah as the nade comes through and does a little bit of damage. But he escapes for the most part unharmed, only down to 88, but it does strip a significant portion of his armor. Recon Dart not giving him any intel right now. There are a lot of bodies built up outside of hookah. There's also two in Showers currently lurking over on the A site, the Omen and the Cypher. Solkis goes in first with the Owl drone right in front. Shots from the left, and they still haven't decided to back off until just now. So at 40 seconds left, they start to rotate around towards the A site. And they've done what they wanted to do. They pulled a player off of the A-site defense. There's only one here. It's Mixwell. So when the push comes through, it's going to be quite difficult, especially as they have that Omen board available.
Oh, I like that move from the Recon Bolt. He gets out of position and manages to find the frag. It's Eccles that goes down. The in-game leader, no longer a part of the conversation, but can he call from beyond the grave? The rest of the team starting to funnel in to get that spike down with just 10 seconds left. Imagine if there was an orbital strike right about now. That spike would not be going down. Pith will find one. It's just down to 3 for the side of Fish123, and they are not looking so good here. Mixwell trying to find an opportunity. Thought he saw somebody up there on the box with the boost. It's the Sage. And now G2 will start to funnel in Soulcast in very deep water here as he'll be taken out. But Scream manages to survive long enough to find a 3K. It's all up to Link. David P with the classic of all weapons will take out the Sova player. And now G2 give us a 6-1 scoreline, a 5-round lead. Fish123, that one's gotta hurt.
Despite the fact that there was only one defender on the site, it was Mixwell with the op, so that's exactly who you want. Eccles had the ult available. I thought maybe we'd see at least an intel ult into the site, maybe towards Heaven, try to spot something out, but we don't get it. So he just dry peeks in from Showers. The Paranoia hadn't had a chance to actually funnel all the way towards the back end of sight, so Mixwell gets a shot, and then the Paranoia hits, so he's flashed after the fact. And that gives ample time for the rest of his team to try to get in position because the other target in Showers didn't want to peek. It was Cryptics, who was just hiding in the corner, afraid to challenge that op, which is what we talked about. Who's going to be able to stop Mixwell? Yeah, right now his numbers aren't that great. It's the Omen who's carrying the scoreboard. But impact. It's all about impact. And it's only a matter of time before Mixwell has some ridiculous round and just picks off one after the other. We've seen it at times from G2, even specifically on this map, shots through smokes because of recon darts that were sent out from Artis. But right now our eyes are on David P as he goes for the peek into the ice. Solkis will go down, and there is no res available for Fish123, so they'll be working with a disadvantage.
I think they used it last round too, if I'm not mistaken, which means that it's going to be not available for quite some time. David P gets into a little bit of an engagement. Patitek that is there to try to defend the push in from Hookah. Still, fish123 held up in this bottleneck of B short. While on the opposite side, we do see Eccles getting a little bit more involved on that A side. A couple of trades here. Artis is ready for that push in into Lamps from Eccles, and somehow he's already rotated over towards the A side. I like that call. Quick moving from B all the way over to A after an early pick in the middle. It's just down to 2 for fish123. They've got the weapons available, but really, how much longer will they survive? Patitek, he sees the barrel of the gun. Wait, did he not see that there? I swear it peeked out through. And now seeing that cyber cage, that'll give the confirmation that someone is there. Someone is lurking around in Hookah. Both 2 members remaining. It's going to be very difficult for fish123 to break open onto this site.
Cage triggered.
They're trying to make their way out. Cryptics will fall first. Scream now on the other side of the cyber cage, just trying to spam away. But not going to connect. Actually, as he goes for an escape route, tagged down and realizing the round is over. So he's going to throw the wall up and then just wait on the other side and then probably go for a last-minute port across the map once the pressure comes through, and that's exactly what ends up happening. He's going to try and hold for this one. We'll see if they actually decide to challenge. They're currently just sitting right outside of it. Maybe a late port coming in? No, not going to happen. So it will be yet another round for G2, and it all starts here with that aggression from David P. Artis picks off Eccles over on the A site. It just feels like time and time again, it's G2 just picking them off first, finding that early opener and punishing fish123, forcing them to use a 4-on-5 or even a 3-on-5 at times.
You know, I talked a little bit about it. 3 members from the side of G2 have significantly higher first bloods per round than really anyone on the side of fish123. The only one that can really compete is Scream. And we've seen how deadly Scream can be, but when you're dealing against 3 thirsty fraggers that are looking for those opening picks, what do? Really, you know? You try to smoke off, you try to blind your opposition from pushing forward, you try to make them feel a little bit uncomfortable, but you really have to actually use the utility to make them feel uncomfortable. Like, how are they pushing forward into B short and finding opening picks? Like, that should not be happening, or rather, fish123 should not let that be happening.
Artis again inside Hookah, playing right around the corner, hoping to survive, but just taken out through the box. They've seen him do it just far too many times. There's one inside the tuna can as well. That's Mixwell going down. Doesn't even get a peek out. So it's up to Pith, who's around the corner, and they just blew the wall trying to get over top of the cyber cage, but Pith gets nothing. So now it's down to 2. A promising look right now from fish123 as they've made their way onto the site. What can they do, though? It comes down to 1. It's Patitek coming in from spawn. A quick shot onto Solkis through the wall. A dink and a follow-up, actually. Scream there with the 3rd on the round. Scream starting to pick up his performance just a bit to try to boost fish123 to a better scoreline in this first half. But G2 has already guaranteed the lead at half with 7 rounds on the scoreboard. And I just don't see it slowing down unless fish123 drastically change the way they're approaching attack.
Yeah, I'd love to see the economy right now, considering we are nearing the end. And G2, they're just kind of hanging on by a thread, so they need at least a round or 2 if they want to stay afloat for some of these last and final rounds. But weaponry aside, look at those ultimates. There's 9 available. Unfortunately for G2, David P not having that resurrection, but you can imagine he may be soon because he used it a couple of rounds ago. So there's a lot available for both teams, and we might see a lot of that starts to come through here, or maybe the next round, or maybe the next. There aren't too many left, so expect a lot of craziness to really start to come through Patitek. But look at this aggression from G2. If it's not Artis, if it's not David P, it's someone else pushing forward and trying to find early picks. And it scares fish123. That's 3 members in the wishbone saying, how do we even get out of our own spawn without G2 trying to peek us?
What's wild right now is you have 9 ults currently available. There's a lot that could happen in this round. Fish123 have so much at their disposal when it comes time for that take. And they're currently moving towards the B site, and this would be the right move. You've only got the Sage here. Sova started to rotate out of position, so it's up to David P. As Artis has backed off. There's the ult being popped by Artis for the time being, going a little bit vertical as he pops the Hunter's Fury, but won't actually take anybody out. David P using an aggressive wall. We've seen this time and time again from David P. Loses track of his target inside the smoke, so can't quite connect. But look at this, Mixwell coming in. Shock Dart as well is there. It's down to 2. Fish123 went for the push on B, but it hasn't worked out well for them at all. Echo's going to go for the spike plant on site. Eccles, though, has Mixwell right around the corner. At least Cryptics was able to take him out before that would be a threat, but with the paranoia, still active. He goes inside the tuna can and just cannot survive. One fatality on the round for G2. These are the types of rounds that we're seeing from them as they are consistently stomping out push after push from fish123.
You know, I'm really starting to think, what is going on with fish123? That's really what's crossing my mind. You talk about tournaments, some of them can go all day long, and the stamina really starts to play a factor. This is a brand new day, and all you're playing is a best of 3. Many different opportunities to wake up on the right side of the bed, have a great morning, get some good sleep, get some VOD review from the day before. There's lots of time for fish123 to get prepared for this match. And G2, in some of these instances, they're just peeking. They're just dry peeking and finding open frags. There are times where fish123, they break open onto a site, the utility works out for them. But even in that push on towards that B site, David P was like, I've got the cross. Don't worry, if they push in, I'll find one, I'll find 2. And then when they're looking at David P, all of a sudden, the rest of the team comes in for the crossfire. So fish123 need to be very careful, but let's see how this push towards A works out.
Oh no, the timing. That smoke starts to fade. The paranoia, though, going to bail him out as PattyTech again inside the showers this time. Locking down that portion of the map. The Rays in sight did go for the showstopper. Doesn't really make too much of a difference on the push. Nice shock dart coming out towards Heaven. That'll bring Pith a little bit lower. There's the ult being pumped as well as they know the res came through. Does it take anyone out? No. Link. Actually, yes. Link hits the double pulse onto Mixwell. A peek in towards Spawn from Scream. Almost worked on Artis, but he was ready for that and waiting. Great damage dealt. Shock dart in to finish off the last bit of HP remaining. But the spike is currently inside showers, and the attack is a little bit leery of moving into that position. There's David P now coming up from short and bringing things all down to Link. The Sova, we talked about it. Not necessarily an agent he feels as comfortable with as he does the Sage. How does that affect his play here in 1v3?
Yeah. May want to just save the weapon. There aren't too many rounds left. In fact, I think the next round is the last and final round. He gets tagged by the camera. They know exactly where he is. He's trying to push forward. You will find one, but unfortunately that clip runs dry, and David P takes advantage of that opportunity. 9-2. You can see a 10-2 now at this point. I'd love to look at the scoreboard one last final time before we move on to that second half and see really where are fish123 as it regards. But looking at this play, Patidek, just a great counter paranoia to the paranoia thrown out by Eccles, and just great overall play from the side of G2. Now, their economy is in great shape. They likely have the weaponry to play. But if we have a look over on fish123, we'll really find out what they're working with and if it's even possible to give us a 9-3 half.
PattyTech right now having an absolutely ridiculous game coming in for G2. Fantastic performance thus far. Eccles, the opposite Omen, struggling at times in that Omen role, has a lot on his plate, being the IGL and the operator player and the Omen. Just a lot of responsibility there. David P went a little bit aggressive with the peek initially, and he gets taken out. Eccles is back sight, and now he's trying to punish as well. There's still one here in position who is Mixwell towards Spawn as well, trying to offer up some support, but now it comes down to the man we were just praising, the Omen. A 1-on-5, a third round looking likely here for fish123. So sure, they end the half with an exclamation point, but for the most part, it's been a dull first half for fish123. They desperately need to pick up that pistol in that second half. As he goes for the peak, first one's going to be his, but obviously the trade is there. So fish123, they cap it off, they make that 9-3, but the 16-6 performance coming in from PattyTech here in the first half, just absurd.
Yeah, on the opposite side, though, it is Mixwell, who's not really doing a whole good job there.
But he doesn't need to.
He doesn't need to. You're right. He doesn't need to. And so I do want to commend the observers. We found a small little fix to the bug. If you hold the scoreboard in transition from the first half to the second, there's a chance. It's like a 50-50 chance that it works out. And thankfully, it works out here for the grand finals. Would you look at that, Bach? Would you look at that?
Gotta love it. Just continue, please. Fingers crossed. I do love the fact that at least it fixes in overtime. So there's that. So yeah. Fingers crossed that will be a thing for us throughout the day. Pistol round, ever so important for fish123. We'll see how they can turn things around here. you do worry when you have players like Mixwell and David P on the attack, a player who plays the aggressive Sage quite well. Scream right around the corner, sees that Cyber Cage come through, tries to fire away on the other side of it, has to dive bomb the box. Mixwell won't allow him, doesn't even see his feet touch the ground. The spike does get planted, significant nade damage coming in from the Raze. Nice smoke from Mixwell to get him out of that position and into a more safe and comfortable spot in the U-Haul. A 5-on-4, but you can see the damage dealt. Sova's on about half HP. Omen very, very close to death. Solkis is going to send the Boombot in first, going right behind it.
Nice
Great paranoia coming out to slow them down. Mixwell will pick one off in the meantime. Another Paranoia coming out. This one working out nicely for fish123. Cryptix goes around the corner, and now it comes down to one. It comes down to Artis on site. Fantastic retake coming out from fish123 here in the pistol.
You know, will they have time, though? Oh, they don't! They win the duel! But they don't have time. That was a great stall from G2. A lot of utility used. I like the paranoia. Not only does it hit the player pushing forward through lamps, but I think it hits some of the players behind the player pushing in towards lamps. So they managed to stall, and they win the round. Oh, wow. And so now, while the colors may still be a little confusing, it is, of course, G2 on the attack. And fish123 on the defense. It is, of course, going to be G2 that win the round. And that puts them at double digits. Bach, it's not looking so good here, but it's still the force up from fish123, something that we expect them to do. We'll see if it works out and pays off for them.
I mean, they naturally go with that because of the score being what it is and the fact that that round came down to what it did. We'll see if it produces success. Eccles right around the corner with the judge, and the armor's been stripped down a little bit, so has his HP. There's a shot coming in from sight. I think it was a Marshall. The body's right now building up towards B long, but it looks like they might be heading back towards spawn. Thought for a second we were going to see kind of a flirtation with B from B long, and then if they don't get their way into the site, they obviously go for the mass TP back to A. But instead, they're just going to run through spawn and through the wishbone back towards that A site. And right now, fish123 is slowly siphoning assets off the A site. But as I say that, they go for a 180. So 3 players now on the A site, the Cypher, Raze, and Sage. But we're seeing a recommitment from G2 towards B. So Eccles still going to be in hookah, still going to get challenged, drops off the box. Paranoia is perfect. They know he's around the corner, but it doesn't make a difference. The shotgun is so incredibly powerful. Speaking of shotguns, you've got Link here as well with the Bucky. One through the Cyber Cage looking for more. Great damage dealt. But now it's Eccles who has to step up. Oh, the dash out from the Jet working out nicely, but it's Cryptix who has survived the round with 3 kills coming in from fish123, stomping out the push before they could get site secured and spike planted. So fish123 survive yet again, and they continue to march forward with an attempted comeback.
So now that we are seeing, okay, usually we'll see the pistol, whoever wins it, they will force up. The team that loses it, they'll stick around on pistols. They won't even bother to force the issue. They'll wait for their first gun round that comes in on that 3rd round. fish123, almost every single second round we've seen them, win or lose, will force up and bring the issue towards the opposition. This time has worked out, and I wonder if teams start to read fish123, if they just hold on to the pistols and then have a gun round on the 3rd round and fish123 is in a weird economic position. I wonder if that's a great counter, but more theory crafting will have to kind of come of it. Mixwell, of course, has the Bladestorm available, looking to use it quite effectively here. Unfortunately, can't land those knives, and now having to get out of a sticky situation. It's the rest of the team that are trying to hold off these pushes coming in from all angles on that A side. Solkis has got the Bulldog and now swaps places with Eccles, who's only got a Frenzy and a Marshall, but can't use the Marshall at close range. It's G2 that pull off. They'll find a pick. Pith manages to escape too, and they'll start to hunt him down. But why? They've taken the connector. They're getting that spike down, and the B site is ready for the post plant.
How does G2 handle this one, though? The numbers working against them, just pistols in their possession. You've got Mixwell around the corner, low on HP, and Solkis isn't having any of that. Sprays him down through the box. 25 HP for the Raze as he leaps out the window. Petitex here, and he's got 71 HP and a classic. First shot right on the money. Takes the second exchange. Obviously not going to go his direction when the Bulldog starts firing away. So the round will be fish123's. And they find their 5th. you have to ask yourself, can they actually do this? How long can they keep this fight up? Will they be able to consistently prevent G2 from finding success in these rounds? This is going to be a big one because this will be the first strong buy coming in from both teams, although it's going to be a little bit awkward. You can see there is no operator. David P's only on a pistol currently, so it's not exactly perfect for G2.
You know, if I'm David P here, do you really need the armor? I think they're anticipating taking up some weaponry from the defense, which of course they've got guns locked and loaded. A smoke here early in the middle. I'm going to assume that was Eccles just trying to block off the vision of them pushing forward. A slow orb as well to follow suit. You have to wonder if that was Scream delaying that push from B short. But it's still 3 committed towards this B site from the side of fish123. And on the opposite side for G2, Pith having a little bit more of like a lurking role as he's gathering information in the showers. Maybe even going to grab that orb to boot. Make a little noise, and G2 now they're ready for the push in. They'll start to hover in around Hookah as Mixwell gets aggressive. It's a wall to stop the push further from Scream, but they'll still get that spike down, and little do they know that wall actually helps G2 in the process. And now it's a weird retake. Echo's going to find one with the operator. That's going to be great, but that wasn't even on the B site. That was the A site, but it doesn't even matter as G2, they fall left and right just down to David P, and he's on the retreat with the Ghost.
Yeah, that's going to be their round to take yet again as G2 managed to find at least site control. David P is waiting around the corner. Sulcus will go for the peak. So it will be another round. It's about climbing their way back into this game one by one, step by step. They find these rounds. They're finding success. And the rounds are looking at least a little bit promising for them. That round from G2, again, we mentioned it, like the buy coming into it wasn't all that stellar. You know, they still had some players with light utility. So hopefully they'll be a little bit better at balancing out their cash flow. You can see Pith has bought down to 1,500. We talked about Mixwell struggling, but Pith has really been struggling. Currently sitting at 5 kills in this second half. We are 16 rounds deep going into round number 17. Not exactly the performance we expect to see. Petitek goes aggressive, has to drop the spike back behind him, and in that time, Scream gets into a better position and takes him out through the box, tries to go for the leap, but it doesn't really matter. Scream's found 3. Mixwell has to peek for the punish, and they brought it down to now 2 and upgraded to an operator. The Boombot going to give away the position there of Pith, but they knew he was present anyway. Almost blew up. Had he not had that operator available to him, would have been a little bit deadly. Right around the corner, there is the Raze, spotted by the camera, taken out immediately, naturally. What do they do, though? How do they readjust? The Aldrone goes in first. The Raze peeks behind it. And the Satchel Pack also going in towards Showers. Mixwell has not re-peeked off Cat, currently just holding back right now. Starting to move up closer to the A site, and again, the Raze has gotten into this corner right around the edge. It's going to be a difficult fight for Pith to take, as there's one in heaven as well, ready for the immediate trade, should he go for it.
Yeah, may want to save the operator too. Mixwell going to throw those smokes down, and as a result, that might be the cross that's trying to help the push forward. It's Sulcus who's there in the back corner now. As Pith swings, that operator will go back into the hands of fish123. They're catching up. 3 rounds separate these two teams, and G2 are struggling to find some credits that they can work with. Of course, fish123 had a little bit of a rough start. In the first half, 9-3 was the scoreline, but now they're starting to catch up, and those rounds don't really matter anymore as that buffer is starting to close in. 4 rounds straight here for fish123, and it was all off of the back of that force-up on that second round after losing the pistol in such a weird way. But now we are seeing, on the side of G2, operator for Mixwell, assault rifles across the board. This would be the round that G2 win if they were to win one of great importance.
You also have the AWP coming in from Eccles, and we talked about that AWP role, whether or not it was going to be a difficult battle for Eccles against Mixwell. To be honest, both players struggling. Eccles and Mixwell not really picking up the performance as the AWP role for either team. The rest of the team has obviously helped boost those performances up. There's the rocket pop coming out from Sulcus, so that'll be Artis going out almost immediately. Now, they do have the res available on both sides. There's the Boombot going in as well. The question is whether or not they can try and get that res through. So there's the res coming through, but they can't really peek freely on the back of that. Eccles does spot Mixwell as he was holding for the push to come through just in case they tried to stop that res from being a thing. So that Mixwell going down, Eccles immediately traded out. Pushing through is going to be Solkis, and he'll take out Pith. So now it comes down to 2 here for G2. It's David P, who's in the U-Haul, peeking wide, and it's down to 1 now. It's the hero who's been fantastic thus far at times. Petit Tech goes ahead and sends some utility towards the site, but then the slow orb makes it incredibly difficult for him to even get out of position. Yet again, stuck behind that box. He was spammed through it a few rounds ago. fish123 survived with all 5. So despite the amount of firepower brought into the round, like you mentioned from G2, it does not produce much success outside of a spike plan.
Yeah, and think about the repercussions of a flawless round. Nothing is going to be out of their hands. Those credits are just going to continue to roll. Yes, they're possibly going to buy some armor. They're going to buy some utility, but they don't need to buy a new assault rifle. They don't need to buy a new operator. And on the side of G2, it may be the force up that they're looking for, or at least the soft buy to make sure that they've got credits, or at least enough credits for the round to follow. This could very well be 10-10 in a matter of rounds, and G2 really need to start thinking, how are we going to put a round or 2 or 3 to close out this map? Or is fish123 really going to catch up here on their map pick and take us to map number 2?
This is an impressive recovery from fish123 despite the early hiccups. Now, there is that ult lead-in from Mixwell. Cryptix goes back behind the double stack, but Mixwell's already made it into elbow. That's a nice shot coming out from Scream. They have to watch out for Mixwell, who's in position, but he doesn't get a chance to even send out one of those blades. The round is stomped out yet again as fish123 crush the B push. A flawless round victory coming in for them on the defense. This went from being, hey, let's make this respectable, let's find some rounds, now like, hey, we got this. I was thinking, okay, like maybe they can fight back, maybe they can force OT. Now I'm thinking they could probably win this map. G2 looks completely flattened out on the attack. They just are not managing to get onto these sites with real solid post plants. Like they're getting onto sites. They've consistently been able to get spike plants. You can see that 3 defuses coming in from fish123. But how many times do we see a retake and it feels like fish123 just doesn't even struggle in those cases?
And in some of those spike plants, it feels kind of desperate. They're like down to 2, they'll get it down, but they don't have the man advantage to really do anything. But this is a great start for G2, their first man advantage on what I presume a soft buy, not even really having the weaponry to deal with. But that's a great opening. And now Scream picking up this operator. That's going to be a couple of these G2 members that have already pulled off the site. The execute was there. They brought the resources over for the side of fish123, but now they've got complete control of this B site. And the weaponry tells us it's not the eco. They're locked and loaded, and they want to make this round number 11.
Caster curse. My bad. It happens, you know? It happens. Shock darts going in. As they get closer and closer to the site, Artis is going to send a high recon dart, trying to get that one in towards spawn. Starts to spray through as the recon dart gets taken out. His position's been spotted, but he's on the other side of the tuna can. Link comes through with the first kill. Another one coming in from Link, and hold on. fish123 have managed to make it a 2-on-3. David P is lurking around the back end of the play. First one will be his execution onto Solkis as well. And that's the round lost. Scream was too far disconnected from the play. Now he's got the operator as well. Doesn't want to give that one up. So G2 will find their 11th round, but fish123 had a small window where they were able to get back into that site, and you thought for a moment they were going to do it again.
So let's think about that round there. fish123, it's down to Solkis, it's down to Link, and Scream, of course, rotating through. Solkis and Link, based on how the spike is planted, it's planted on top of the tuna can. So they're thinking, okay, they're playing long, they're playing Octagon, which is why you saw Scream push up through B short, maybe trying to see if anyone's there, but he's like, guys, there's no one there, or at least I don't see anyone there. And so David P and Patitek, they have the opportunity, a very small window, but they have the opportunity to flank through labs, and they do so masterfully. And unfortunately for fish123, they just weren't expecting it. They were trying to read the situation based on where the spike was planted. So now moving on to this round, of course, fish123 still have the economy to buy, but I think this is the last force-up that they can afford. We'll see how it opens up. Mixwell dry peaks, and that dry peak will not go his way.
Artis moving in to Hookah. There's one inside tuna can right now. It's a Cypher just playing with his camera. Spying out the angle, looking to spot him. Right now, the rest of the team, though, over on short, considering working towards the A side. You've got Solkis and U-Haul as the Rays. holding this position right now, as now you'll see the rotate over from Artis. It will be a 4-player push up short. No one coming through from showers. Deep smoke coming out, but it's not exactly perfect. There's the camera as well. Sulcus is right around this corner, ready to punish. He's got the nade as well. All he has to do is time it nicely, even though he has all that intel somehow, some way. Petit Tech is there as the Omen to punish. Scream wants to use his own wall to get some verticality to peer over the opposite Sage wall, try and find an angle, a line of sight towards the site. Instead, he'll end up falling to Pith. And the defense crumbles here on the A side. It's down to a 3-on-3 retake.
Oh, I like this from Petit Tech. Does he expect it? Oh, Cryptix had no idea. Oh, man, that smoke was so good. And he hit in it perfectly as it dissipated. They didn't even know each other existed until that point. Now it's just down to 2 for fish123. Does feel like this could be map point for G2, but Eccles, he wants to be a part of the conversation. Down to the 2v2. That spike's ticking, but it's a great swing from David P. Eccles needs to get involved, but he's got the swing. It's not good. It's David P. He takes us to match point for G2.
He will end up dying, so he doesn't actually escape with the operator, which is, I guess, a little bit of a problem, but at this point, G2 is just thrilled to have gotten it to 12, because for a while, it was looking like, okay, this comeback is very real and very scary from fish123. That said, you're still going to see a full buy come in from both teams. You still have the operator. It's in Mixwell's hand. The op there for Eccles. Again, even though both players have been very much lackluster, Eccles has actually put up a better performance than Mixwell, who's been very quiet on the map as the rest of the team has really done the heavy lifting. You still want to make sure you have that coming into the round. Deep recon dart out over on B long. David P leaping around the corner. And he'll make his way all the way up long, very far up on the push. You've got Scream playing currently in Hookah, putting the wall down a little bit further up than we typically see. The shots will come through, trying to chisel away at that ice. But David P is in the octagon. Do they clear this corner with the Owl drone? No. So that could be a problem. The anticipation that there's no one there, and you can see it already works out well for David P. Immediately punished. So they lose the Sage, and they lose David P., which is also important as he's been a top performer for this team at times. Sulcus in position, spotted out by the dart. Mixwell hits the quick shot. Eccles spotting out Petit Tech, who tries to get into that better position inside U-Haul, will bring it down to a 3-on-3.
That's going to be the shock dart, trying to clear it out, but unfortunately it does not go deep enough still. Like you said, it is the 3-on-3. They try to push in aggressively. Mixwell hopping into lamps. Pith, unfortunately, will be smoked off, and so this might be a lot of space that fish123 gain. The paranoia to try to stop them from pushing forward. Here's the engagement. The spray's good from Artis. It's the quick trade. Mixwell needs to get out of there, but he hops right back in, gets domed right by Cryptix, and now it's just down to Pith. The swing is good. Now down to the 1v1. It's Link against Pith, and that's going to be the first spray, but it doesn't connect through the box. The clip is starting to run dry, and it's good! It's G2 that win the first map on Bind.
Pith, really good positioning as well there in that 1v1. Just a subtle shift to the left of that box. You can see the spam coming through, assuming he's in that tight corner. Not the case. Just peeking out a little bit, just enough to dodge those shots. Well played from G2 to close things out. fish123, they fought hard in the end. I mean, they really brought it back. And you were starting to wonder if we were going to see maybe them take the map or even take it to overtime.
Yeah.
Just couldn't quite muster up enough. That first half deficit was far too great. They lost the first half 9-3. So the fact that they even got it to that point is impressive, but we needed to see more from them in that first half if they were actually going to try and take that map.
You know, really the biggest question mark for me was, were the first bloods from G2 going to be that impactful? And in the first half they were, but it's in the second that they really struggled to find these opening picks. And fish123, they held on. Let's bring the analysts in. Let's see what they have to say, and let's let them break down what just occurred.
Bok and Simo, thank you very much for that. An explosive first map there. It may have been Fish's pick, but it looked like it was G2 all the way in a very convincing fashion there. 9-3 for that first half, right? I really didn't even think Fish would muster up a few more rounds after that. I felt like they might be broken, so I'm happy they fought back into it. Yep. But you've got to say it was once again just the G2 show.
Yeah, for sure. And again, it's not, well, I guess Ardis was there from the usual suspects, but you're looking at David P just killing it again over on that defense side of B, like just unstoppable. His walls up over the side of elbow were just disgusting. Like it seemed to catch somebody almost every single time. And then there's just Patatek, who I think this is his map. Like,
yeah, he loves it.
Just the performances we've seen out from him on the aggressive plays on the defense, also on the offense, although it wasn't necessarily him all of the time. In the rounds that mattered, he was able to pull rotations. He was able to hide within his own dark cover and find picks. The guy's playing nuts, and I think whoever made the decision to pick him up within G2, they've done a damn good job.
Yeah, I don't think you'll be waiting for that contract for much longer. Do you, Mitch?
Well, David P shouldn't be. No, he should be picking that up any day soon. What Tom was saying about Patatek as well, one thing that himself and Dave did a great job of was holding down Hookah, just harassing them constantly. There was 9 rounds, the first 9 rounds, where you saw at least some semblance of an attempt to use Raze to clear out Hookah, which we always talk about as being such an easy task, right? You drone in the left side, you nade the right, you're pretty much guaranteed that it's clear then. But Patatek was using the little wooden platform, the sort of bench of sorts, to just avoid the nades whenever they were coming in, and even they then committed a drone towards taking it, so you're using a lot of utility and still wouldn't be able to get in there and deal with them. Patatek constantly being a thorn in their side. That was huge because they couldn't get control over that site. We saw them go the vast majority of the rounds towards those first 9 or 10, and the success there in holding down post bans wasn't in existence either. It was without having that Hookah control. I don't think that's nearly as convincing of a defensive side.
No, and that's one of those things, right? When we come and look at this, it's G2 we expect to be good on the map, but I think we expected a bit more from Fish early on here. And Mitch, you watch a lot of the streams, right, other than just the mainstream here. So what are you able to tell us about that? Have you learned too much from it? How's the comms scene for Fish? Because I know that was a struggle we looked at yesterday.
Yeah, what was really odd watching Scream stream was that they were super chill. I mean, they were down 9-2, I think, at the point where everyone felt a little bit flat. You know, things did definitely start to, the energy levels came down as rounds went on, and you'd expect that. 9-3 was like a turning point. I don't know what it was to them that made 9-3 look better than 10-2, but as soon as they bounced into the next half, like, come on, guys, we got this, and they're right back up there, full energy and ready to go. I think that's really the winning mentality. It's what you have to have if you're a team, whether you're the best or the worst, it doesn't matter. If you go down 10-2 and say, oh, it's over, boys, GG, just stop trying to compete at that point, and that's something that Fish showed us. They're capable of having that strong mental fortitude.
Yeah, just sadly, they'd let too many rounds slip away before that had come up, and I think that was a big problem. Now, we spoke about a lot of the positives with these G2 players, but Mixwell, again, started off this series slow. Wasn't really needed, right? It's not so much that he wasn't playing well. It was just more, he didn't need to do too much in the early parts of the game. And I think if he does actually come online and start to get and have impact, then Fish should be really scared when it comes to Ascent, because we've seen what Mixwell's done time and time again on that map.
Yeah, I think this is another example of how terrifying G2 are, because you say he started slow. I don't even really think he did anything in this map. Like, he was very quiet. There was maybe a pick or two here and there, an attempt with some knives that didn't seem to go too well.
Yeah, bumping into your teammates doesn't work out, does it?
Yeah, like maybe that David P contract has gone lost for another week or two, but no, it was one of those things where it was just like they had so many other players performing. The only thing that worried me a bit was when that comeback was beginning, because I think the big thing for both sides, actually, and the thing that surprised me most is normally with this map, the tough thing is basically getting in, especially with the B site. I would say getting onto the site can be very difficult, but most of the time we were looking at afterplant situations for both squads. Now, on the A site, I think it's forgivable with the retakes, but when both teams had these same sort of executions, I expected them to hold on to it a little bit better, and it took a long time even for G2 to actually hold on in these scenarios. I think what made the difference, though, is they started getting more aggressive around that A side. They started not only taking lamps, but even taking more of the site and just not allowing rotations in at all, which was something that I don't really think I saw too much. And also something definitely worth noting is I think the effectiveness of lamps has gone down significantly since the paranoia buff. Because now you can just paranoia the whole of lamps. We've seen teams be able to retake that position so much easier than it was before.
Yeah, big change coming in there. And you look at the scoreboard when it comes to this, right? You're seeing a much more even performance coming out of the side of G2 there. But we said about Mixwell not being in there, right at the bottom for this one, right? And they still take the win. They still get a 13-9 victory. Soulcaster, again, I've got to keep pointing him out. He was a player that we really did kind of sleep on when it came to this Fish lineup. And over this tournament, he's been the one that can make a real difference in it.
Yeah, I think I'll take personal responsibility for that because it was after the map where I specifically said I didn't like Solkas on a Sova, that he dropped, 30 kills on a Sova. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Thanks for that, bro. Appreciate it. Yeah. But actually, just a point that Tom made there about the paranoia. Solkas found a 3K in that second pistol round. And the reason they lost it was paranoia in lamps, because we saw Patatek hold on to it for the whole round. They went in for a retake. They set themselves up over on Fish. As they said go, paranoia came through. They had to wait for it to fade because there were 2 players in lamps then completely blinded. They'd already used the boom bot as well. That was what really triggered the paranoia usage. And then they ran out of time to defuse. If he had used that earlier on the actual take itself, they would have lost that round because they wouldn't have had an extra 3-4 seconds bought up because of it. So 100%. Not only is it a very effective tool, but we saw it actually win rounds.
Now, next, boys, it's Ascent that's coming up. It's G2's pick and probably their most comfortable, most confident map in it. Though sometimes it's got a bit close in terms of the score lines. Now, we said about Fish, right? They started to actually pick into Ascent on some of the opening games during the group stage. I've just got to remember, though, that game yesterday against NiP, they had it in the bag. Should have been a really convincing win. And instead it ended up 17-15. And they're now going up against G2, who I would say is far better than NiP on this map.
The only thing I'll question, though, is that although you look at the 100% win rate and you go, wow, 100%, 7 maps, that's really good, right? 2 of those maps were insanely close. Like, you talk about Noel Penke, who, although I think coming into this tournament, we didn't know too much about, but definitely put up a good showing. Do I think they should have beaten G2 on their home map or even come close? No. And then Party Pirates as well, like having a relatively good half, but then a relatively poor half on the other side.
Just like they do, yeah.
That's the thing that worries me a bit. Is sure, the last 2 times we've seen it versus Nemo, Deanna, and IP, they had really good attacking sides, or at least one of them had really fantastic attacking side. I do question whether or not they're going to be able to do that again. Now, I have a lot of faith in their defense, but I'm not sure I'm quite on the same bound when it comes to their offense just yet.
What about, though, when it comes to Fish's hopes in this, right? Where do they need to find their strengths early on here? Their attack is just going to be all the way.
Their attack, I think the last time they played it, they got like 9 rounds on the attack, and they were really adaptive. I was really impressed with how they managed to sell fakes. And probably, again, like, I hate just bringing up one player. It has to be Scream, man. It has to be Scream. He was so good the last time they played. And I'm not even just talking about, okay, yeah, you got 30 kills, cool. Like that's nice. That was one of the times they played the map. But it's also just the way he uses all of his utility, especially on A-Long, to sell fakes and basically push people out of positions and leave your opposition with no information. Because that's something that throughout the defense on this map, you could say that G2 had every single time because they had players pushing, people taking control. I remember a round where Patatek had pushed all the way through behind them and then just decided to TP to the other side of the map because he knew no one was there. Like, if he can gain that much info for the squad, you cannot win. It's just not possible. But that's something that they did so well on Ascent attacking, where they denied their opposition any information at all until they finally hit. And most of the time, they hit B.
Now, Mitch, what are you thinking going into Ascent, man? I know you were a G2 man all the way through so far on this. Are you feeling like this is going to be a comfortable 2-0? Because I really wanted a 3-mapper here, and I'm starting to feel nervous with my boys and Fish.
Well, I'd be in the same camp as you there, James. I would be quite nervous for the boys and Fish, but I do want to see a third map. Do I think we'll see one, though? It's very close to a 50-50, so you got to favor G2 in that just because of their track record, I guess. Those 7 maps they've got, yes, as Tom said, they've been pretty close. Like Party Pirates, definitely not more so Null Panky, not a team that should have been taking them all the way to OT. When I look at their other results, versus NIP, they 13-5'd them. Ever since they played Party Pirates, they figured out what was wrong with their attacking side. Their defense is very varied aggression. They go in for mid control much more frequently than any other team does. But that's something I'd almost say is a requisite for G2 because they're playing Jet as the operator. I don't want to see them play that passive style. They do have their Sage over towards the B side. They do have their Cypher on A. Thankfully, we're not straying from or we are straying from the madness we saw the other day where it was Cypher and Sage towards the wrong sites, essentially for NIP, which was a major reason their defense failed so much. I love how they play this. I think G2 on the defensive side, they bring a lot of tempered aggression. There we go. the Jet early peeks, Omen TPing in on short so they can double peek straight on over to outside of B. The early shock darts combined with the slows from David P that we constantly see thrown in towards B tunnels, they chip away at your HP or take a kill pretty much every single round. And that's something that I think is going to stand to them in this series where, yes, we've seen Fish do pretty well on this map, but this is a whole different approach what they're just about to go up against.
And when we talk about the different approach, right, is there a chance here, Tom, where you see that Fish can just come out in a different mentality? Because we've seen them turn games around and win their opponent's map pick. We just see this switch flick, but I don't know how you make that happen right now for these guys.
I almost want to see them start on attack.
Okay.
They get the choice, so why not? They've definitely shown more, I would say, on their attacking side. And I want to see them setting the pace. Like, they didn't do too well in the last map attacking, but I think if they can get themselves off to a good start here, basically shut down any of the things that are attempted by G2, I think they could take map 2.
Well, let's see if map 2 is going to go the way of Fish and take us to a third. We've got Bok and Simo back. Guys, that was a near comeback from Fish just then. Where does your hope lies, though? Because, again, it's just looking like G2. They just seem like the unstoppable team. I'd arguably say the best team in the world right now.
Yeah. There's there's not much else that can be said that we have two of the best teams in Europe going head-to-head right here, right now. But Bok, my biggest question mark has been how both teams have played Ascent. Yes, G2 have had a close game, a couple of close games against Nolpenki and Party Parrots. But my biggest worry is how fish123 dealt with NIP and how kind of messy it was in comparison to what I feel like G2 were able to hold on in all the maps that they played. So it's just going to have to be a wait-and-see approach. How are these rounds going to unfold? G2 had a great start in that first half on Bind. Will we see that same start here on Ascent?
Yeah, and then will fish123 have that mental fortitude to go for the comeback again? Will they be able to actually try and muster up that strength? Because putting up that fight on that first map only to lose it, definitely a little bit frustrating, I'm sure, for the likes of fish123. G2 came out swinging, and fish123 was a little bit slow to react. But then in the later rounds, G2 had kind of run out of steam, and fish123 started to fight back before G2 closed things off. Again, you mentioned it, that game against NIP on this map, it was not exactly fantastic from fish123. Going into multiple overtimes to the extent they were like, okay, like, who's going to win this? And at times, it looked like both teams might, because they would, like, say, win in a defense round.
Yeah.
It was an incredibly attack-sided set in general when they played on Ascent. So they were just trading attack for attack, because the way that overtime works now is you play to win 2, and you swap each round. So if you win the attack, you have to then win the defense. So they just kept going back and forth, winning attack rounds. Then someone would finally win the defense, and we're like, sweet, they're going to win. Then their opponents would win the defensive round. It just went on and on and on until it finally concluded 17-15 for fish123. But at the same point in time, fish123 also won Bind against NIP 13-5. So I don't know. I want to believe that we're going to be able to go to that third map. You love to see a 3-map series, especially for the grand finals. But right now, it's looking bleak for fish123.
We are seeing some of that agent selection stick to what both teams are, in my opinion, the most comfortable with. Scream, of course, doubling back towards that breach, and we've seen how he sets his team up with flashes. And, you know, funny enough, it is actually Eccles who calls most of the shots here. In fact, if not all, for the side of fish123. But Scream still has great utility in which he sets up his team for success. We'll see if he'll be able to do so here. I think last time we saw David P on this map do wonderful things. We saw Artis hit some pretty crazy shots. There was this one clip that I can recall to mind where he was up on the rafters on the defensive side for A, managed to get a penetration shot through hell, and then quickly flicked over to the right. Just G2, they're prepared. They're mentally prepared for this map, but the big question mark is fish123 prepared?
Link has a target right around the corner. It's the Jet. The drone not going to get through the door as it gets shut just in time. So that's unfortunate as they try to use that to lead in. Recon Dart goes down. You can see the spam coming through from Sulcus. That's the Sage that's made it up very far. And he turns back around to spot his target. But he'll be falling off. And again, it's a weird round coming in from the attacking side of G2. Oh, the wall just comes in a second too late, so Link will get taken out by Mixwell, who waited for that opportunity so patiently. Scream, back of sight, nice flash coming out. He's got 2 targets so coming his direction, and the leaping artist proves to be too much to deal with. So the spike should be secured, and the site has been lost here. But the retake is already well underway, with bodies already building up in that area. Solkus just sees his teammate go down behind him, and now Pith is there as well. It all falls onto one. It's going to be the Cypher. This round, just very strange with the way that it plays out. G2 putting feelers out across the map, pushing up short all the way past tree room, past the window towards spawn. Then he backs all the way off, goes towards mid and market. Mixwell just waited in B main the whole time. A bit chaotic. And as a result, fish123 were caught off guard across the map at various points. Link, shotgun over towards B, takes out the dart. But the intended push in that area, they decided back off. They had 4 players built up there. It looked like they might actually go for that fast B play. They changed their mind. Look at Cryptics right around the corner with the Bucky. Sees the pistol first, goes for the peek. Second target there. Can't quite get the pulses from that shotgun to connect. And now he's down to 65 HP and stuck in a very difficult position. First shock dart, make it a follow-up. Nothing can be done. So now they'll be moving in with the Aldrone. They'll spot the one right outside of main with the Judge. Eccles can't even port out in time. This defense falling pretty quickly here as G2 look to have another strong round. Yes, they've been brought down to 3 in the meantime, and Scream is still in position, but he's playing the breach with a Marshall. So it's not exactly ideal hardware here for Scream. And with the spam shots coming through, he's going to back off. Continuing to pop shots down towards Hell, looking for the wallbang kill. Can't quite line it up as of yet. The rest of his team still moving into position. So now one more has come through the window, and there's one also coming in on long. That'll be the Sage with the flank. The Tremor coming out from Breach, from Scream himself. Nice shots onto the site from Solkus with the shotgun. There's more currently in Hell. The Judge is going to have to do the dirty work. There's one right around the corner, and the shotgun is perfect for the scenario. fish123 may have lost some bodies earlier on, but they stole the round away here from G2.
I need a drop.
So, we're all tied up. fish123. They may have lost the pistol, but the force buy with shotguns works out really nicely for them. And that'd be great, considering that their defense in that first half when they played against NIP was absolutely awful. The same, however, could be said for their opponent, who had a similar problem. The dart's going into B main. Link gonna get one as Mixwell gets a little bit too close for comfort. Link gets dropped down low on HP.
It's like I missed. But it does seem to be back in order for me on my end. One frag, of course, already going to kick us off for fish123. And for the side of G2, trying to make sure that this attacker side really goes well for them. And that's important for their success moving on to that second half. We saw how successful it was on Bind. It was a 9-3 finish. And now here, looking to do the same. But so far, fish123 making it very difficult. That force up. Now G2 trying to look for another opportunity towards B. It worked last time on the pistol, but will it work again? As fish123 are denying the push forward. The spray through the HUD actually will take out Solkus. I'm not even sure where Artist was aiming to get that frag, but they open things up with 2 picks, and now fish123, they have to react.
Cryptics has made it up to spawn. Scream is there as well, and as the smoke comes down, the dark cover doesn't pop quick enough. This will be a solid move as there is one right around the corner that flushes him out of position straight into Eccles' aim. The pulse is coming out from the ult from Artis, end up working out for at least one. Through the smoke goes David P. Does great damage to Eccles, but afraid to repeak because there is 2 targets there. Now he's moved over towards lane, and there's not much that Eccles can do about that one. It's all up to Cryptics here with the Phantom in the 1-on-2, down to 39 HP. They're both behind the default box. Good double peek coming out from G2. So back and forth we go.
Yeah, and G2 keeping it alive, but at the end of the day, we did see fish123 buy maybe too many weapons in some of these early rounds, and now you'll see only Scream. Of course, he was able to save that weapon, taking that Phantom to the next round. Link, the only one able to buy probably an actual full setup, and he actually will invest into it. It's the complete force up here for the side of fish123, so losing this round would be very scary. But on the opposite side, the economy doesn't really look quite great for G2 either. We're seeing 2 Spectres come out while the rest of the team able to really afford those brand new Jordans on the first day of school. Those assault rifles will be quite handy in the engagement that's about to occur. It's the A-side push. They're looking for an aggressive move in. Eccles, unfortunately, he was looking for the judge play, but he'll be dealt with quite quickly. Cryptic's one of the last points of contact as he's being flooded, won't even find the quick trade, and another round not going the way of fish123.
Nice shock dart coming out from Sulcus. It was kind of a fadeaway shot, and it works out nicely. The ult being popped as well. The Hunter's Fury couldn't find that second pulse after connecting initially. Good damage dealt here by fish123, as now the spike goes down. Link's got a line of sight through this wall, and he can actually just walk right around it. And as he tries to peek, he'll end up taking significant damage through the edge of the wall. The recon dart looking to give away some positions. Scream spraying through that smoke. Can't actually hit as the generator is in the way. It comes down to 1 on the site against 1 over towards long, and it's David P. It's exactly who you want in that scenario. He'll survive the round, but it's a brutal round for G2 to win, as he's the sole survivor. And it was Sulcus with a shotgun who did all the dirty work.
To be quite honest, it was very rough for both teams there. Fish123 will have a look at the scoreboard just to give us the information on what the weaponry looks like. But considering how close these are, we're really waiting for one team to pull away. And despite G2 winning now 2 back-to-back, that does not mean that they are out of the woods quite yet on the economy front. It is still fish123 that are forcing up. We're seeing a Bucky here on the side of Eccles. We'll see if he ends up using it. But it's a big question mark as to how the economy, where it will go and for who it will go to. A lot of Buckies on the side of fish123, and we'll see if that ends up being quite helpful or fruitful for them, as 2 picks from David P tell us, nope, not going to be the case. And now the rest of the team will start to funnel in towards the A site.
Scream holding back a bit with the Marshal, realizing this round is very much lost. So you can see the aggressive play coming out from David P. Of course he's going for it. Why wouldn't he? He's just that kind of player. He wants the kills. Mixwell's thirsty for it too. The last 2 for the defense currently deep in mid, and Pith is going to be the first to spot them out. The shotgun actually does great damage to Pith. He's down on 13 HP. The tripwire slows down Link, but he's still there with the Sheriff. He'll upgrade to the Phantom.
Uh-oh.
But it's only got 10 bullets left. Does he have the... Yeah, he doesn't have the time to reload. So doesn't even convert onto 1, and they'll go ahead and upgrade anyone who is lower on the totem pole with the buy. It will be another round for G2 here on the attack. This is exactly what we saw, though, in that series between fish123 and NIP yesterday. It was a very attack-sided map for those 2 teams, and I would anticipate the same to be the case here.
You know, and I actually tend to agree with you, considering how we've seen teams in the North American region make this map really feel attacker-sided. But statistically speaking, it tends to favor the defense, which is quite interesting when you see teams such as G2 and in the North American region such as T1 really make this map look and feel very attacker-sided. And we probably can just chalk it up to playstyle as fish123 get a little bit aggressive on their own front, and will take out an early pick from G2.
The ult coming through from Mixwell dices Link to pieces. Same could be said for Cryptics. Goes up inside the dark cover. Eccles is like, okay, that's enough of that. And as a result, it's now down to 1. It's the Omen. The T-Tech, he's on site. Goes for the dark cover towards spawn. Decides to just hide inside of it. Gonna port past. He walks a little bit too far up. Gets spotted as the barrel starts to poke through. So doesn't really work out so well for him in the 1v3. Realistically speaking, it wasn't destined to begin with. While we saw some really impressive plays from Kriya as the Omen with some aggressive ports, we haven't necessarily seen the same from anyone else. If I'm being honest, I think Kriya is the best Omen that we saw in this event. Eccles, he doesn't play it poorly, just not the same way. And the same could be said on the opposite side for Petitek, yeah, he's great with his aim, but it was like that aggressive positioning. Really utilizing the full extent of the agent was what made Kriya so good. It's a shame he's obviously not playing at this point, because otherwise we'd get to see a little bit more of it.
Honestly, I think he's the best Omen in the world. I'm just going to go ahead and say
I'm inclined to agree with you.
Yeah.
You know, it's very rare we see Omens elsewhere that would play that level of play.
We are seeing G2 poised for this round around the middle. Have gained the control, and now Catwalk will be their next target of affection here as they will group up together, and Link is ready with a wall, and that'll stop the push dead in its tracks as the other team may be missing that communication. It's only Pith who really pushes forward, and he's like, guys, where are you? They've already pulled off and head towards the fruit market. They'll get caught by a tripwire. G2 really just scattered this round, not able to really communicate well, and we saw that communication in earlier in the show, how it's a mixed team. You know, the shots aren't being called by one specific person, and in that case, we really felt it with Pith taken out early.
Quick shot coming out from Mixwell onto Eccles with the operator, but the spike, it's going over to a different side of the map. So again, they'll move up towards short. You've got two currently playing defense here. You've got Link and you've got Scream. Scream goes down almost instantaneously to David B. The Sage v Sage battle goes the direction of fish123. Great shots coming out from Link, as well as Mixwell will go down and result in a 2-on-2. Nice res also coming out on Scream to give them the numbers advantage in the retake.
There's going to be the Hunter's Fury from what I assume is Artis. He's going to try to get a couple of tags and maybe even look for a frag. And quite honestly, if he got that there, that would have been huge, because they would have nullified the res, but they don't in this case. Artis now having to reposition just down to one final player. It's Petitek. And as he peeks through the archways, it's Solkus that'll take him down. fish123 keeping this one close. It's 3-4, and there aren't many gun rounds left, I feel like, for G2 to really start to find momentum. And so this quote-unquote attacker-sided map where G2 can really thrive is not looking so good as we had anticipated it might be.
The thing about those rounds, though, that you're seeing won by fish123, all of them are post-plant. You'll notice 3 spike plants coming in from G2. They are consistently getting site control. So fish123 is having a hard time stopping them getting onto the sites. This should be maybe one of the first opportunities for them to do that, given the way the buy looks coming in from G2. I mean, it's like shotguns and pistols. It's far from ideal. Scream, for whatever reason, continues to see a peeking David P through the B connector. Kind of curious as to what the reason was for that constant challenge. Onto the site they go, though. Cryptix comes up empty-handed against the pistols. Eccles has to be careful as well. He doesn't want to peek out too close with that operator, as the pistols can unleash a flurry of bullets towards that direction. So yet again, site control, spike planted for G2. And there's another kill coming in as well. Like, this is problematic right now if you're fish123.
And really, the biggest problem that I personally find is that if fish123 are able to find these retakes, it's because the post plant is difficult for G2 to get into a comfortable position. We're seeing that here. Artis, he's like, where am I going? Where are we? Link finds 2. Is there no communication to say that there's one fragging from behind? The entire team was looking up towards heaven, and Link was just like, okay, I'm going to line up my crosshair a little to the left, a little to the right. He took a sweet time to get those frags. And that'll be us tying up here 4-4 for fish123. Kind of weird for the post plant for G2.
Link getting ready with a deep orb coming out. Just to, yet again, these rounds. G2 just consistently getting onto the site. They got to work on how they hold the site after that fact. But the full buy will come in from both teams. Scream wants to get a little aggressive towards long. There's that shock dart we've seen a couple of times come out from the attacking side. It's a couple of ricochets and it lands right inside the arches. Will do significant damage if you're going for an aggressive peek. And also will take out tripwires if you have tripwires there as a cipher. So really good play coming out from Artis to try to potentially dent someone up to start the round. The Owl Drone getting flashed as it makes its way through. Scream's going to change positions as the Owl Drone dies just outside the window. Scream Speaking of the window on the other side of the glass, currently looking through, seeing if anyone's going to come that direction. Causes a weird coloring effect on that dark cover, which is interesting, but he'll be backing off as they continue to gather up control of grass. They've made it up pretty far. Once they go ahead and break that glass, Eccles is done for.
Yep. You called it, but still it's Scream that is there from behind. They maybe did not anticipate the push-up up the ramp. And still that spike likely going to go down any moment now. They're going to plant what looks like to be in a new position. Not really behind the generator. And that might be the call for the post plant. You know, they've struggled with it before. Maybe that angle is better for them in holding down that spike. As they get into an engagement with Patitek, they help Scream push up forward. And now it's the man advantage. It's the 4v3. Mixwell in a great position. Shot's going to be clean. And still, I don't know if they closed that door before, but it's still wide open for the defense to funnel in. Regardless, they will funnel in from heaven. And as one, they will get picked off one at a time. Artist gets the penetration from what it looks like to be the wall there. He shoots in from long. Mixwell has a clean shot, and it's just down to Solkis. He drops down. Finally, a great post plant for G2, but really, I just think it was fish123 walking in one at a time and being just taken out easily.
That's what we needed to see from G2. Much better in the post plant. That consistent site control finally works out nicely for them. There's still money left, though, for the defense. Fish123 can fall back onto a little bit of cash. That will include the operator. This time, though, it looks like Link is going to carry it. So not giving it over to Eccles, who's consistently been the op player for the side of Fish123. But there's the deep flash coming in from short by Eccles. We've talked about that flash before. The paranoia can lead them in. Link with a nice shot, making a follow-up as well. On to David P. through the smoke, no less. That spammed in chat for that one, as we've got ourselves at a 5-on-3, very early advantage coming in from Fish123.
G2 have worked with a lot less before and still can at least try to turn things around. May decide to save the weaponry, but with a minute left on the clock, if they just take these frags one at a time, they can really find themselves in a great place. But Solkis, little does he know, that was probably the best read on the recon bolt that he's had, as now the rest of Fish123 will start to pull off of this ace site, and G2 still waiting patiently for an opportunity to push forward, and that opportunity is slowly starting to come and go. It's Mixwell will get into this back corner, and the rest of his team will funnel up through the middle, likely going to go towards that fish market, but Eccles is there waiting with the Bulldog. A quick shot onto Mixwell really tells us that this round is going to start to fall apart one frag at a time.
Artist patiently waiting right around the corner, but the time ticking down lower and lower. He'll at least get the first, and now he wants to try and just find a better spot to hold on to this weapon if possible. It was great work coming out from Link with the operator. And again, at times we've talked about it. Eccles with the op, he's not bad. It just doesn't seem to click. It doesn't seem to work. Again, he's the IGL playing the Omen, which is a role that's maybe a little bit newer to him. And he's also the op player. So it's kind of like a little bit awkward. A word I would use is ham-fisted. It just doesn't seem to work. Whereas Link just illustrated how good he can be with the op. So maybe it's time to offload that responsibility over to Link, as he got things started strong in the round. 13-6 currently for Link, top of the scoreboard here as the Sage, keeping the scoreboard tied up. A promising first half coming in from Fish123, and you might be saying, yeah, but it's only 5-5. I think this map might be decided. Well, based on what we saw from them yesterday against NIP, their halves were definitely attack-sided in that series alone, so I'm looking to that series as a bit of a sampler for what we should expect to see from Fish123 in that second half.
And quite honestly, there's only 2 rounds that remain, including this one, as we'll start to see it go the way of Fish123. An early pick from Cryptix as they'll start to push forward, but it's Mixwell. He slices, he dices, he finds 2 frags, but at what cost? His teammates, they're falling all around. It's just Artist that last remains in the 1v3. Has the Hunter's Fury available. Likely not going to use it here, but that spike is down. Sees the one peek behind the generator, and now as he's flashed, he stays close left. Cryptix with the 4K on the round. A great hold from Fish123. A lot of utility spent, but it does look like we could potentially see a 7-5 finish here for Fish123, who've really done a great job in some of these scenarios, either A, retaking, or B, that first hold that went really well.
So we come into the final round of the first half. Fish123. I want to give them credit because they're looking so much better, but at the same point in time, G2 has very consistently gained site control. They've just really struggled.
Well, that was interesting. Both trying to fight for orb control, and quite honestly, a lot of utility spent to gain that control. We're now seeing G2 poised towards Catwalk, and Eccles, he'll be in a little bit of trouble as now they'll start to swing one at a time. Finds one, but it's Scream there with two, will deny the push forward into the Dream Room. And now it's just down to Artist once again. The rolling red carpet is going to come out, and Scream peeks down A long. We'll find that frag onto Artist. 7-5. Prediction comes through, and now it's the pistol for G2. They really need to start to think and start to wonder, how are we going to defend against fish123? We've seen them before play with the fakes, really throw their opposition for a loop, usually off of the back of somebody like Eccles. And sometimes he'll be paired up with Link. They will just push together. And on the opposite side, you'll see Scream leading the charge towards whatever site they decide to choose for. So 7-5, of course, the scoreline that we are moving on into the second half, and it'll revolve around a lot about the pistol and how we will see these rounds really develop. And so, of course, the round begins. Fish123 poised quite heavily towards that B site, but still those feelers on the pistol. We'll see how that ends up for them as they are now preparing for a look into the courtyard. No one, of course, there except Mixwell. He's waiting close towards the pizza side. And now waiting for an opportunity to at least see if anyone peeks through. The slow orb going down. A lot of smokes, too. Pre-fire shots here coming in from David P. Just sending a quick message. So far, nothing for Fish123.
That was weird. My whole internet just like, I don't even know, for like not even a minute. It just like disappeared for a second and then came back. But I still could go to some websites. It was like my DNS just died. Regardless, here comes the push towards the site. Artist goes to the burst fire for the first shot. It fans out and doesn't do as much damage as you would expect. Still able to win that 1v1, but Scream is there for the immediate trade. So it's a 4-on-4. Spikes found its way towards the site and going down inside the muck of that B site. Scream gets peeked by Mixball, starts to spam through the dark cover. They've got lane control and they've got stairs control as well. They've made their way into the house where they can trigger the door, and you can see the leaping target trying to dodge the shots coming through the wall. Paranoia into the site. Camera gives away their positions. They start to move up closer. Cryptics from back behind the default box, not able to do much, and it comes down to Scream here, trying to get through the door, but the spike's already being stuck, and it's looking like it's going to be a round here for G2. There's just too much in his way to stop him from getting back in. Scream, with the great shots, finds a 4K, but at that point, the round was already lost, and G2 pick up the pistol.
I think at that point they're just like, yeah, whatever, Scream, do what you want to do. I think I saw David P at one point. He was looking through the archway and he's just like, what do I do here? But now looking forward, of course, we do have the scoreboard again. We have managed to maneuver our way around the bug, and while it does look like G2 are on attack, they are in fact not. They are on the defensive side, and of course, Fish123 are attacking. So we'll see how these rounds start to pan out, and for a great start on the pistol for the side of G2. Let's see if that momentum continues, because Fish123, they might start to come online very soon.
Here we see them just playing slow right now with the SMGs that they've brought into play. Obviously, yet again, it's a force buy. This is what we've seen consistently, most specifically on this map. We see force buys on this map in more than we see, I feel like, in any other map in that second round. And I may but just be talking out of the back end of my body, but I feel like that's the thing. I feel like we've seen it a lot this tournament where teams have felt compelled to go for that second round force on the attack. Obviously, more often when they get that spike plant in the first round. Some smokes going down on B. has pushed some weight in that direction. Pith has to pop the cyber cage as there's targets right around the corner, and they're just going to pour through. First one's going to be his. Super low on HP, decides to go to the sidearm. He's got support from Mixwell, but both players will go down in the end. It's a 3-on-2, and they're going to get that spike over towards the site.
Spike, of course, going to be going down, and while I was really questioning whether some of these force-ups ended up in wins for the side of fish123, and we are seeing now before our eyes that in a lot of cases it does work. This is the second time that we've seen it really bode well for them, as G2 are struggling to really deal with that force-up. They've got to come in with the weaponry too. No longer can you just hold on to a ghost in the second round and hope to buy an operator on the third. You got to get involved. You got to get active. But how can you read that? You can't. You can't anticipate the opposite team either pistoling or forcing. And so fish123 constantly bringing it to their opposition, and it nets them around, and that will continue their lead.
So they stretch their lead back to 2 rounds. Artis just sitting back behind the detonation radius and then diving in as it retreats for safety. What does the buy look like for G2 here? Because Artis has a Phantom, so he spent a significant amount of money coming into that second round. But the rest of the team's money, it should be a little bit rough. But I wouldn't be surprised to see another force buy. The back and forth, yeah, there you go. So there's a little bit of extra power brought to the round. You've got the shotgun, you've got the SMG, and there's another shotgun coming into the mix as well. This is what you expect to see in these next rounds, and I might go back and forth for a while if they continue. I love the paranoia peak. It doesn't really help out Artis at all, but because he has the full rifle there, the Phantom, it ends up resulting in success. David B has to come all the way across the map and meet him in the middle to try and get the heal through. Scream with a dink shot received will convert in the 1v1 and bring things to a 4-on-4.
I think Scream has one of the most insane reaction times of any player. How many times I've seen him peek and just directly move his crosshair towards where it needs to be? In that instance, I think if it was any other player, Mixwell wins that. He at least gets one, and then he gets traded. But Scream's like, yeah, no, I'm not letting you do that. I'm not letting that happen. So while at close range, still manages to get the kill onto Mixwell, and now the rest of the team pushing forward together. Eccles, of course, not a part of the conversation anymore. Oh yeah, sorry, he still is. It was Sova on the opposite side. Solkis that ends up falling, and now they'll push forward. DBP waiting close down below. It's a great cross set up by Artis, but they're still waiting to jump in. It's a great positioning, but DBP, he's hesitant on the trigger, and now Artis with 4 on the round. The Phantom that was brought in pays in tenfold as they win a round against fish123.
And yep, back and forth we go. More money being spent here from fish123. Not really a surprise there. Scream didn't even hesitate. Instantly locked on that Phantom. He's like, I'm not giving up this round. There is no way we are letting them tie things up here. 18-10 from Scream. 14-9 for Link. Again, we talked about it. Link, outside of that Sage roll, feels awkward. Scream didn't really have a great map in the last map. Here he's playing fantastic as the Breach. So that bind setup, we had talked about it yesterday as well, kind of a little bit awkward for them. Now, though, it's working out nicely as they've gone back to that comfortable territory. High cam coming in, but there's the Rolling Thunder towards the A site. Surprise, there's actually no one playing defense on A currently. They're back further, so they'll be able to get onto the site, potentially free of charge. Now, Pith will peek out and sprays through to get one, at least towards the door, but the wall goes up, the dark cover is in, and the spike will be planted. And we've got ourselves at a 5-on-4 here. fish123 has site control, and you can see the Sage is right around the corner. Heal going out as well to try and bring everyone back to full HP.
Oh, wow. Solkis right through the floor. It's the recon bolt that spots Mixwell, and then he capitalizes on that information. They'll still try to push forward by the defense, but now it's just down to Scream. And all the last that remains is Eccles. He's got to swing around this wall. He does so, but it's Artis that's prepared with a spray from the Phantom. And now G2, they tie us up. We thought about this attacker side for fish123, and so far, I mean, they get the spike down in a lot of these instances, but G2, they're great on the retake, and they really punish fish123 there. So now on the pistol, this could be a potential round lead for G2.
what do they do on the side of fish123 as well? Just looking at the buy that's coming in. Look, we got that worm with the cane and the top hat again. What do you do if you're on the side of fish123? Because you're like, oh, come on, man. Like, we just went back and forth trading force buys. You know there was a conversation, at least for a moment, where they're like, should we do it again? The thought for now, no. Let's save. Let's wait until we can full buy. Yes, we might lose the round and give G2 the lead, but it's better for us to go that direction than to continue down this path and potentially lose it and also be worse for wear. So you can see the likes of fish123 grouping up currently in B main. You've got a couple of bodies there. David P going to lay the wall down. I think he wanted to play on top of that one, but it doesn't go as far back into B as he had hoped. So as he tries to back off and find an angle, he'll drop off the wall, but it still does section off B main for the time being.
And that's really where fish123 are all held up, still waiting for the opportunity to push in. And sometimes I'll see teams either they'll wait for that utility to dissipate and really leave a question mark for the opposition. And that's what we're seeing. This distraction by Sulcus is causing a lot of confusion for G2. They pulled off members from B, and then now they pull back. They're just a little undecided where are the opposition going to go. This is obviously not a spy cam that we're looking at. We're just looking at a different angle. But now the Hunter's Fury going to come in from Artis. He's going to tag one, and little does he know, he might find a little bit more than he bargained for. He'll find one as the rest of G2 will decimate the opposition that are moving forward. Unfortunately for fish123, it's only pistols in their hands. But G2 do not lose a single member, which they can at least feel good moving forward with the weapons that they have.
Starting to get a little bit scary right now for fish123. As, you know, we expected to see a lot from them on their attack side, but we might not get to see so much if G2 find just a few more rounds and close things out. This is a huge round in this half, as fish123 need to start moving forwards with a solidified attack plan, an attack strategy that will allow them to not only gain site control, but also hold it after the spike goes down, a problem that their opposition had in that first half. Artis from distance taking out Eccles, who went towards Catwalk. A Cat Peek coming in as well, but Scream somehow lives a little while. He's down to 33 HP, and he's trying to get out of that position. He's trapped behind the box, but there's no one currently peeking. He's just hopeful that he can wait for now and potentially get some help. I think they're going to throw down a Cyber Cage potentially to try to get him out. Yeah, they do. So they send the Cyber Cage down from the Cypher. The heal's going to come through as well from the Sage. And that'll put things at a 4-on-4. And Scream looks like he kind of wants to stick back around towards mid, but he's going to be heading towards spawn. There's the res coming in on to Eccles, who is deep on Catwalk. This is a great move coming out from fish123. A nice response to the early damage that was dealt by G2.
I'm quite surprised that David P hasn't healed Mixwell yet. I'm pretty sure that's why he hasn't been signed yet by G2. Just holding on to that heal. But maybe he doesn't have it, so I'm not going to fault him there if the cooldown's cooking. Fish123, they've got Sulcus, who's ready with the distraction towards the A side. But G2, they're still split twice on both sides. Sulcus trying to clear out anyone who may be hovering around that A side. But David P, he sees an army pushing in towards the B side. It's the Aftershock that pushes him even further back. And now Mixwell is going to need to get here in time quite quickly as David P's all on his lonesome. How many can he get? Finds one so far, but can he find the second? That'll be the best translation there. He'll find two. Can he find the third? Cannot. It's Scream. But how long will the team survive here for the side of fish123? Sulcus now incredibly late on the rotation as it's just down to the defense. The Mixwell swing will work out well for him. And as Sulcus peers into the site, it's Pith that is ready with the cross. Spike, of course. Did it even go down? I think it went down, but it'll be diffused by G2, and now they'll have the 2-round lead.
G2 looking strong currently. It's a little concerning right now if you're fish123 or a fan of the roster, as they've won 4 rounds in a row. And unlike what we saw from G2, site control hasn't necessarily been as easy to come across. So what do? A little bit of aggression coming out from David P, peeking in towards B main. The cam gets taken down as the slow orb lands. It'll push them back just a bit. David P shows no signs of slowing down, and that's going to result in his death potentially. The flash coming out. He almost gets away somehow, but accidentally slows himself down in the attempt to reel back towards the B site. So a man advantage here for fish123 early, and they take out David P, who's been a strong performer statistically and as the Sage. That means they lose that wall, and they lose the heal as well.
Patizek, though, will be one of the first contact points alongside Pith towards this A side. They've got Tripwire set up with that recon bolt, about to make it very difficult. As how do you react? There's a red carpet being rolled up, but the Paranoia is at least a decent answer, but still they will lose one in the process. It's Scream that pushes forward. Mixwell, he's ready on the side. Patizek is not alone in this battle, as Mixwell will provide the firepower at a distance as he pulls back towards Heaven with Artist. One kill coming in from Patizek, looking for the second, looking for the third. Patizek, yes! G2 defend yet another push, and that'll be round 11 for G2.
That is an absolute backbreaker for fish123. That is a brutal round to lose. You have the Rolling Thunder pop by Scream, and I'm pretty sure he kills Pith in sight while he's mid-air, popped up from the Rolling Thunder above the default boxes. And yet still, the round goes to G2. A fantastic retake, all triggered by the Omen play. There's not much that you can do at this point. G2 is rolling towards that finish line. fish123 continue to fight, but they just cannot seem to find the weakness. Even when they're getting on the site, it's similar to that first half, whereas G2's retakes that have been few and far between in the second half thus far, because fish123 haven't necessarily gotten onto the site as much. But it's those retakes that are just too strong to deal with. Aggression coming out yet again, and it is punished. As there's trades going in both directions, we'll have one player who's currently sitting on the sidelines. Link is pushed up mid towards Market. Mixwell doesn't even see it coming, so assassinated by the Sage, but there's another kill coming out from Artis, who's spamming away. He's got some support coming in from the Omen as well, and it's another one! Brings it down to Eccles with the Bulldog, backside of Market, gunned down by Biff. That's 12 rounds now for G2, one away from taking the series and being crowned champions.
G2, if you're in the chat, Patizek needs a raise. He needs a raise. He needs
Not the agent.
Not the agent. He needs a raise. More money on his salary cap. Give this guy some... where he pulls performances out of nowhere. He's not even top fragging at this point. It's Artis that has been there finding these last second frags, and sometimes 2, 3, and 4. But now Patizek has come alive on this defensive side, and he's really pulling G2 to the end here. This could be the last and final round for fish123.
It's an early advantage, at least for fish123. Somehow it works out nicely for them. And there's David P, though, chiming in with 3 of his own. David P with a solid defense, but it's a bounce back coming in from fish123. Don't count him out of it yet, as they found themselves in a 2-on-2. But as I say that, Scream tries to flash and gets gunned down through the wall. It's all up to Solkus, the Sova, to keep things going. First peak not going to be his. It will be G2, your champions here of the WePlay VALORANT Invitational.
Yeah, you hate to go out that way. Really have to commend G2 for the effort that they put forward. But the round ends, Scream trying to prepare a flash for Solkus to peek, and he just gets domed through the wall. That is the most disheartening way to finish a map. You know, we really saw fish123 pick up a little bit of steam at the beginning of that second half, but G2 just too strong, just way too powerful. The firepower was great. Everything really worked out in their favor. I'm just speechless. I'm going to have to see what the analysts have to say, but I'm sure they've got their own very heated opinions about that match.
I like that I'm currently stationary because my internet cut out during that game. So I'm actually moving and talking. I'm still here, but apparently I'm just as still. I'm just as shocked as everyone else to see G2 take things so quickly. Oh, look, Mitch froze as well. He's completely frozen. Oh, no. Never mind.
I was just doing my best Scream impression from those last couple of rounds. Oh, man. Phew.
It was rough. You were completely right about that, Mitch. And Bok, I just thought you were so in shock of what just happened that you were completely just still. I didn't actually know your camera froze. I thought it was just the new and improved you, mate. But no, Bok, Simmer, you guys killed it for the grand final. Thank you very much, you two. We're going to let you get on and enjoy, and we're going to hopefully be able to talk to the winners G2 real soon and just digest how monstrous of performance this was from this G2, because going second half, right, 7-5 up, Fish looked like, okay, this is going to be the chance. But you mentioned it in the pregame, Tom. That defensive side that comes out from G2 is damn scary.
Yeah, like we've now seen them get a couple of victories where they've lost the first half. This was actually probably one of the better halves they've had, at least against the top teams, where they get themselves 5 rounds. And I kind of looked at that and I went, that's not bad for Fish if they play as well as they did on the offense before. And the fact is they didn't. It was, again, like we were looking at after plant positions for both sides, I'll admit, like going the wrong way, I guess you could say. But also just individual brilliance. Like if you have the ability for any member of your team to take a wild peak and win all of those duels, well, except maybe against Scream, it's got to be pretty frustrating. And then the thing that was so damning to me was the first half, Link was fantastic. Probably the best or one of the best in the whole server. Second half, he just disappeared off the face of the earth. And it was so noticeable in those last few rounds where you just go, well, David P's just got a triple kill running into mid.
Yeah.
Like, how's he managed to do that? Doesn't make sense. And then the same for Pat as well, while stunned, still being able to get kills.
And one thing I want to touch on what you just mentioned there, right? Not just the pushing into mid, and Mitch, I'd love to get your thoughts on it, is the fact that you saw G2, it wasn't just your Mixwell and Artist pushing, it was everyone pushing at different points. It was David P able to get away with murder. We were watching Panatek sat there and just be on an absolute lockdown mode. It didn't matter if they even lost the first kill, right? They would refrag and turn that into a triple refrag. It was crazy.
Yeah, there were 2 states of existence for David P in that game. He was either pushing them down at the start of the rounds in the likes of B tunnels. And eventually, sometimes he's getting punished, but he had an insane success rate from what I was seeing. Or he was holding an angle with his wall out, just ready to grief them, slow them down, get the info, and pull those early rotates. That whole first half of the attacking side for Fish, they were running into so much utility. David P was the harasser the majority of the time to slow them down again and again. You're seeing exactly what Eccles was talking about, actually, when he said they don't look at Sage as the healer. They just look at it as the solo site, the player that, or the agent that can slow somebody down, slow the whole team with those orbs, with the wall. Then it just transitioned into madness, because eventually Fish realized, okay, we need to deal with David P. We need to get rid of that utility early round. That's when we saw them pick him up early on the B site, when he got aggressive and start to just bait out that util early round so it couldn't be a problem when they push sites. That was great. And then Panatek just starts 3K and 4K, and it was like, what the hell is this? You're finally doing everything right. You know, you've used the first couple of rounds to calibrate your attacking side and figure out what you need to do. And now they're going to just spray down 3 of you at a time and just completely discount all your hard work.
Oh, yeah. And we're seeing, sadly, on some of the highlights, this bit that really bothers me about Fish. I tweeted out about it yesterday. How many times do we see them go one by one into some of these duels against the defensive side? This just shouldn't be happening.
Well, I think the biggest thing for me was the boathouse at the back of the B site, where they gained control. It was almost like they did the hard work. And actually, this is an adaptation that we've seen from G2, because the last time we watched them play their defensive ascent, they had Artis and David P both being really aggressive around that B side. And they did do that a couple of times, but then we saw 2 or 3 crucial rounds where they had one player on the site and then one player in the boathouse. And that player on the site died each time. The first time, Artis gets a 4K from the back of the boathouse, which, I'm going to be honest, if you even use basic utility there, in any regard, he should be dead. Or even if you just peek 2 people, but he gets 4. And then the next time, they already know this position's a thing. They run into the site and David P manages to get 2 instead. And by that point, it's not even just the fact that he gets 2 kills, it's the fact he delays enough for the rest of the team to come in. And those are mistakes that, although they can easily be fixed when you're in a grand final, those are the ones that lose you the game.
Now, Mitch, I know you're always keeping an eye on the streams that are going on. How was Scream's stream? Because he was playing like a madman, but he was kind of very much on his own in many situations in the one to try and hold on to Fish's chances here.
Yeah, I mean, there was even that round where he found the 4K and they still lost it, right? He ended up picking the last 2 after time. I think similar to the first map, they're in high spirits coming in. They're happy with the scoreline they got in that first half, and then things started to spiral out of control a little bit. You saw a little bit of individual tilt, nowhere near what we would normally define as tilt. Nothing blocking up comms. They were still communicating very well. They were still positive, but you could see it just in the mannerisms when, like, Scream would find 2 kills, they'd lose a round. You got some face palms going in there, and the mood was just very, very low. I think they knew what was waiting for them.
Yeah, and that's sadly what it is sometimes, right? You are pretty much waiting for it to end at that point, because Fish kind of ran out of steam after such a good start on that first half. But G2, I think not only just the best team in Europe, right? I cannot wait until we can get onto LAN again and see some world fights, because a lot of people sit there and talk about what we can see in terms of like, oh, the Americans, they've got this style and stuff. But I think you've got G2 who's got the perfect mix of styles right now.
Well, yeah, and the scariest prospect for me, I don't want to use it as an excuse, but this is them still playing very, very loose, as almost like a freestyle of we're playing as with a player that we don't even know if we're going to keep, which I will say at this point, G2,
keep him.
If you're not keeping David P, I don't know what more he can do for you guys. Like, he's had some incredible matches on a solo basis. He also does, he's probably one of the best Sages, I think, I've seen throughout all of Valorant at the moment, just with how he uses those slow orbs, the walls to basically delay. And we came into, I think I myself and Mitch especially came into this sort of judging him off of his CS merits, which I think there's no doubt that there's been a downturn from what we've seen from him previously. But coming into Valorant, he has looked phenomenal. And in this tournament, he's been one of the best players. As I said, going into this match, I think he had the second highest KD out of everyone in the tournament, which is ridiculous. I think the only person above him was Shao, who we're basically calling a young star from the CIS in the future, who's probably one of the best players in the world at the moment. So I don't know what more a man can do, and honestly, like, just sign him at this point. Like, you've won a 50K tournament. Like, what more can a man do?
And the thing is, this probably is not going to be the last tournament the G2 win, because you're winning a grand final here, Midge. Not only 2-0, but it was 2-0 in all of your playoff games coming into it. Impressive from start to finish is not only just a word, it's the fact that G2, even when they're behind, can fight back. They have the resilience. We speak about some of the issues they have in terms of communication sometimes, and yet still that isn't a factor. We listened for a bit while they were on the technical pause, right? You can just hear artists and that, just having banter, they're fun, they're having laughs.
Well, yeah, that was before the match. He literally went, what was it? What can they do? Well, maybe just make this one fast so that we can get it over and done with. Like, that guy is cocky out of his arse, but at the same time, he was fantastic. So can't really take anything away from it.
Fix my Discord sound if you can hear me.
We've got artists on the line. Yes, we can hear you, mate. We can hear you. That lovely Scouse accent's come through. Artists, you guys, you came, you saw, you conquered, and you delivered in a very convincing fashion here. But how much does this mean to you in terms of this win and getting it over Fish, because of the kind of you coming from their roster? Eccles definitely saying he really wanted the win, but they couldn't make it happen.
I couldn't give a shit what people think, you know what I mean? I'm here 10-10 in finals, okay? 10-10 in finals. Not lost the best of 3 in the whole of Valorant. Hey, including the beta. I have not lost a single best of 3. Listen, I walk on water in this game. Simple as. There's no ifs and no buts. I walk on water. That's just the way it works. That's the way it is.
Artists, you haven't changed a single bit since when I met you back in the gamers part. You seem even more hyped up right now, and I love you for it. But one thing I've got to ask you, right, is it when it comes to this, when you're scrimming, when you're practicing, when you're playing against all these tournaments, what is it about this G2 roster that makes you guys so successful? Because we know what damage you can do, but like David P stepped up this tournament. Patisek has had fantastic rounds coming into it. It seems like you guys just have the perfect mix at the moment.
That's exactly it. Like, our players, we don't have a weakness. Like, we have the best 5 individual players. But like, I don't want to call people out, but like, if you look at like, I don't know, I'm gonna fuck it, you know what I mean? Like, Party Parrots, you take Angel and Shao out that team, and they aren't as good. Like, they have like 3 not so good players, and I could go through a lot of teams like that. Like, you look at Fabrican, you have like these superstar players like Zipan, Meadows, Unreal as well. But then they also have players who aren't as strong, and I think in the future, I think it'll change when we'll see like 5 good players on each team. But for right now, I think there's too many people on teams dragging each other down, because you got to realize we've done this just off no practice. Like a little bit of practice, but mostly this is all feeling. So like, I just think we're more individually skilled than any team right now in Valorant, like hands down by a mile. And that's why we're going to win everything, I think.
That was something I wanted to ask you, actually. In the future, do you think you'll ever move to having like a proper in-game leader? Or will you always play with like you and Mixer going, right, this round, I'm going to boost over here, I'm going to shoot 2 people with a shotgun, or you just going, I'm wrecking them over here, and then just running down and killing it? Is that going to be the style of G2 forever? Or will you eventually be more strategical, I guess?
I think in the future, 100%, we're gonna have to someone's gonna have to start calling or IGLing. But for right now, how early Valorant is, there's no meta, there's nothing to there's nothing for people to do. Right now, we're just going off individual skill. Obviously, I think that will change in the future, and I think for us, what it'll be is the big loss. I think whenever we lose, that'll hit us hard. But right now, we're 14-0. We're going good. Why change something that's working? Right now, we're all going off feeling. We're all playing off our experience, and it's working. So at this moment, I don't think we've changed. But obviously, in the future, we definitely will look into that, I think.
How satisfying was it for you? I got to ask that you got a 4K in that, right? Just spraying down your ex teammates. How satisfying was it for you to really stick it to them, not just as your new team, but with you?
Bro, how satisfying, bro. I went from CS for playing 800 a month, to winning 25 bands, you know what I mean? I'm feeling good, bro. I'm feeling fantastic. Do you know what I mean? Bro, this is different level for me. I used to be happy with 800, bro. Now I'm winning 5 bands, and I've won 12K or I think 14, 15K in the last 3 months. That's, for me, that's insane, you know what I mean? I'm living life like a king, you know what I mean? But obviously, times will change, but for right now, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. And obviously,
you can buy a couple of houses back where you're from for that much money, though.
What did you say, sorry?
You can buy a couple of houses up in Liverpool for that much, though, can't you?
Hey, I can buy a road for that money.
Well, something else I'm interested in. So, Simo is Latvian. Obviously, I'm British. Where do you place yourself? Because obviously for UKCS, well, let's not talk about it, but UK Valorant's not looking so bad. Do you consider yourself English or do you consider yourself Latvian? Are you going to let us all down?
I consider myself Scouse. Not UK,
there we go.
Pure Scouse. That's the way it is. I've got a Latvian passport, but I am Scouse. You know what I mean? That's the way it is.
Beautiful.
You are 100% Scouse for that. Now, Artis, I want to get on to a bit more of a serious topic of conversation, right? Because I know we're having our fun here for sure. But I personally cannot wait until we get to the international competition, the LAN competition. What do you think of the American competition? Have you seen what some of them teams do with their styles? And do you think they would stand a chance against you lot?
See, from what I see, is they're underdeveloped. I think if we played the NAC right now, I think we'd win. Obviously, this is obviously what I'm going to say that, but the thing is, I feel like they have the same problems that we have. Where you look at a few of them teams, they have a few players weighing them down. If you you look at TSM, Wardell's unbelievable, Sub Rosa unbelievable. I think they have Relics as well. I think, but then you look at the other 2 players, I think it's Hayes and Cutler. I don't want to flame, but you know what I mean. They could be improved. No, I see the thing. Yeah, it's bad, but you think about it now. Imagine if they added tens and and someone else, another mad fragger. That roster would be that'll be top 1. But I think it's for how early. I think that'll happen in the future. But for now, it's just all about stabilizing the scene. I think so. Yeah.
And how do you view the development of the Valorant scene? Because obviously we're only just getting out of closed beta. We're getting these big tournaments in terms of prize money, but we're also kind of at the point where we still need more. Maps are going to be added, agents are going to be added. Do you think it's going to become a bit more strategical? Because it definitely feels very momentum and individual based, like you're saying.
I think in the future it will. But the map thing will be great because right now I'm just bored of playing the same 4 maps. I think Riot said they'll add 6 agents every year as well, or something along the lines, which is also good. Because right now you're seeing the same agents a couple of times. I know they nerf Sage a lot. I think if they really want to nerf someone, I think they need to nerf Cypher. But how you do it, I don't know. But right now, I don't know. I want to see where Riot take this because right now I'm enjoying playing Valorant. But obviously, I'd like a bit more spice to it.
And that's the thing, right? You come from Counter-Strike and you had a bit of success in there, but obviously nowhere near to this level, and especially very limited playing within the UK scene. What do you think was the difference maker for you guys who all moved over to Valorant early on, and why you were able to adjust so easy? Because we've seen it from many players in different games. They've had success, but it's definitely the CS lot that are kind of running at the top at the moment.
I think for us as well, when I was on fish123, we were all like sick of running the same default on CS. Let's do the same A default. Let's do the same B default. Like we played CS for like 10 years now. Like you can't really innovate as much. You can't really like. People know everything that you can do. Like it's very rare that you go to a tournament and see, another team's done something new in CS. In Valorant, as soon as we saw that it was announced, like I think it was called Project A at the start, we all said, "Listen, we're making a team for that." We got there. We were all of us like highly skilled. We made a team, we made tactics, and when in the beta we just won everything, which is obviously that's that's probably the best. Like we said we wanted the perfect start. We didn't lose a single tournament, a single best of 3. We didn't lose any events like with actual prize pools. So it was like a dream start for us, and then that's how we knew that Valorant was going to be it for us, to be honest.
Well, Artists, I'm going to give you one final chance here to say whatever you want to the community out there, because you guys are certainly making a statement in the server and in the game, and you've taken a big win here. So take the floor for a second, mate.
All right, listen, follow me on Twitter, G2 Artists, 2 I's, yeah. I need followers. Getting 100k by the end of next year in a year, 100%. And shout out to me fans. Shout out to your boy Kieran, Scott, Stark, you know what I mean? Shout out to everyone, you know what I mean? But follow me on Twitter. And by the way, God bless the sponsors, G2, Red Bull, AIM Labs, and Logitech. There you go. Big up the sponsors, you know what I mean? And yeah, thank you. And that's it.
Well, Artists, mate, thank you very much for giving me the interview. I wanted it from you yesterday. I'm glad you actually came on to give it to me today. It's been a pleasure watching you grow, and it's good to see you're exactly the same as when I first met you all those years ago. So keep it up, keep on grinding, and we'll see you at future tournaments, mate. Have a good rest of your day, and enjoy the celebrations.
Thank you very much, and yeah, hope to see you guys in the future. Thank you. God bless.
Gotta love him, right? That is a true Brit. He can say Scouse or whatever he wants on it. He's definitely one of us. That's a lad and a half.
That was maybe my favourite interview ever.
Mate, I've never done one like that. I've done hundreds.
Yeah, he's more dangerous than you.
I will say
that way.
Yeah.
Like, I'd say a solid 80% of our viewers didn't understand a word that he just said. But everybody that's from Britain or Ireland, we enjoyed that one.
Yeah, we definitely did. Now, we got to end the show now. So, Mitch, I'm going to give you your chance to start off with so we can remove your little camera up there. Any final words for closing out what I would 100% say has been the best Valorant tournament that we have seen so far throughout the history of the game?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, massive shout out to WePlay. This production has been far and beyond anything that any of the other TOs have been able to put up, even with, I mean, we know more than anyone out there, the amount of issues that we've had in the back end, just with the current state of the world and all that sort of stuff. And they've overcome every single one. They treat us amazing. WePlay are the best organizer out there. I mean, just hands down at the moment. So shout out to them for putting on such a great tournament. The teams were amazing. I mean, everybody came on. There was no messing about, really. It's great to see. Hopefully we get to do a lot more of these tournaments in the future. Valorant's got a bright future. So thanks for running at WePlay. Thanks to you guys in the desk as well. Even though I'm miles away from you, it felt good.
Tom, your turn.
No, I think you can only echo what we've seen just even from within this room, but then every person working backstage with all the cool AR stuff and the graphics, it's gonna be tough to beat. I'll put it that way. I challenge people to give it a go. Always want to be rising the bar, but also just some of the teams we've seen. I think NIP bursting onto the scene and making it straight through to the playoffs. Obviously, you had Need More DM as well. They're a squad that, we have to say it, they are still looking for an organization, and I guess technically Fish still are as well, although rumors are around. But the Noel Penke, the Lithuanians, Vac is one of those players to watch in the future. So if you are looking for a team, there are plenty out there that could definitely use the sponsorship, because that's the thing. You have to realize these players at the moment, they're doing it off their own back.
Exactly.
They are basically living off prize money if they manage to get that far into a tournament. So if you want to see Valorant continuing, if you know some bloke that has too much money for his own good, give him a call and tell him to pick up one of these teams, because realistically they're going to promote your brand, and it's going to be a sick game going into the future. And
now's the time to get involved indeed. Tom and Mitch, thank you so much for all of your time. That is it from the WePlay Valorant Invitational. It's an Ignition Series event. It was 50k on the line. G2 Esports are your winners, and they did it in absolute style. For me personally, this game has a very bright future. We can see the success that's coming its way. I can't wait to see more tournaments from WePlay and other organizers. But one thing I do want to make sure that happens is we go away from invites and we see qualifiers only, because the more teams we get to see shine, there's a lot of experience, there's a lot of skilled players and teams out there, and I want to see more of them take to this center stage. Thank you all of you guys for watching. I hope you had a fantastic tournament. I've enjoyed every moment of this. From all of us here at WePlay, thank you, and we'll see you next time. Trust me, there'll be another one.